It is Free Talk Live. Dial on in toll free to join us here if you want. Bring up whatever's on your mind. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
And Melanie.
And, of course, you can bring up anything. That's the point of the program. We also have our Discord on-air call-in line rooms at discord.lrn.fm. So head on over to one of those and jump into them. We'll get you on the air, and you'll then sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us. We can talk about the prostitution case that apparently is expanding now to target another billionaire down in South Florida. That can be on the way here tonight. But Melanie, you wanted to talk about this new draft case, which garnered a bunch of headlines, I think, within the last day or so. That some federal court has ruled. I don't think it was the Supreme Court, right? Was it?
It was not. It was a lower federal court, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it's getting a lot of news coverage about the draft, and specifically women and the draft. What's going on?
Yeah, so there's been reports that the draft has been declared unconstitutional as if it's going away. There's been reports that women are now subject to the draft. There's just been...
Those are two completely different outcomes.
Yeah. Sometimes I can look at a story and be like, the reporter that reported this is just lying and they need views. Sometimes I can't tell if they're malicious or if they're just that incompetent.
Probably the latter. I mean, many reporters don't know the law. They don't understand probably the court systems that they're working on or, reporting on.
I don't understand microbiology, but I don't write reports on it.
Right. You would think that the AP or whoever it is, Reuters, I'm not sure who we're talking about here, but you would think that they would hire an attorney to actually do their writing on legal issues. That would be the smart thing to do, but I don't know if that's what they actually do.
I hope not.
You hope they're not hiring an attorney?
Well, based on their output, I hope that this is just somebody who is like, I don't know this.
All right, well, where's the story coming from? And what are they claiming?
It's coming from a bunch of different places. I pulled up this one from USA Today, probably just because that's the first one Google gave me.
Now, USA Today, I remember reading back...
but it was in a bunch of pretty major...
Yeah. No, but what I was going to say about USA Today is I remember reading years ago that USA Today has an editorial policy of writing at either it was a 5th grade or a 7th grade reading level. So they are particularly noteworthy for the kind of the reading level that they write their news stories for. I'm not saying that any of the other papers out there are any better, but just,
Okay, but it's also CNN, NPR.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that I'm sure there's reports everywhere.
New York Times, NBC.
And it's probably just
Fox
as
News.
bad of an understanding of it everywhere else. So I did look through one of them, and I don't remember which one it was, and I'll just tell you the gist that I got from the report. And again, this may not have anything to do with reality and what the court actually ruled. But it was my understanding that basically they've ruled that having a selective service system for just one gender is wrong or unconstitutional, and so therefore they would need to either do one or the other thing, which is to say have the selective service for both genders or to not have a selective service.
Yeah, so you're saying that's what media outlet said?
That's my interpretation of what I read from some media outlet.
Yeah, there were media outlets saying that. There were media outlets picking one and running with it. What actually happened was nothing. Okay. Which is kind of a boring thing to report on, I guess.
So when you say nothing, I mean, presumably some judges issued an order.
Nope.
Are you saying no?
So there was a denial for a request for summary judgment, which means that... So basically, this group, the National Coalition for Men, issued a request sued the military. And the military issued a request for a 12b-6, which is a claim that this case is so beyond frivolous that you don't even have a claim. You're just writing on paper. Basically, you're literally claiming the other party is just writing on paper random stuff. There's absolutely not only no legal basis and no legal argument, there is no legal claim contained within this document.
Hold on, that's what the military's saying?
Yes.
The military's saying, throw this case out, this is garbage.
Yes.
Okay. And so the court ruled on their motion?
Yeah, so the court ruled on that because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
This case isn't over. I don't know if it ever will go anywhere, but so the judge basically said, and this is 2 paragraphs, the judge said, well, there is a claim within this document, therefore, this case is going to proceed to court.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
That
so no decision has actually been made here. I see what you're saying.
And that's what you would expect in most 12b6 claims, because to succeed on a 12b6 claim, you're talking about stuff to the level of, I'm suing you, Ian, because you're wearing an orange short,
right?
And that gives me emotional distress, so I'm suing you for $7 billion. And then Ian would come back and be like, you're not stating a claim, you can't sue me. Not dismiss. Because I'm right, but because you're not even stating a claim. And then the judge would be like, yeah, there's no claim
which relief
here.
Can be granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's to that level of just absurdity.
Or there's no standing frequently, right? Where the person attempts to.
Well, that's not
sue.
even a 12b6 or a claim of no claim. That's just no standing.
Yeah.
Which some of those can be more substantial than others, but.
So okay, just to recap here. So this men's rights group has sued the military.
The military. It's a selective service system of the military.
They've sued the selective service system, saying this is unfair. You're discriminating. You should either have selective service for both genders, or you should have it not at all. You should not exist. Is that kind of what? Do you know what their claim is, or what their?
So you don't usually get to read the claims themselves unless you subscribe to ridiculous levels of access to stuff. But you can kind of figure out what. If you read some of the prior rulings, that seems to have been their claim. I can't say that for sure because I don't have access to the claim itself.
So at this point, no court has actually ruled on this case. This is at a district level, federal district court.
Right.
All the judge did was say, we're throwing out your claim, military, that there is no claim.
Yes.
And that's what's getting the headlines. So that gets
reported as there is no more draft, or women will be drafted, or some other ridiculousness that CNN decided to make up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you clarified that. And so that information was in the USA Today story, huh? That the judge basically just.
Well, no, I looked up the.
You looked up the court case.
Court cases.
What'd you do? Pull it up on Pacer?
No, you can. So court cases themselves, if you want the collateral documents, which is like the filings of the parties and stuff, you're going to have to pay somebody for that. But if
that's
you
Pacer,
just
right? The federal court system.
There's a couple of systems you can use, and that's probably not the best one. But if you just want the judgments, you could just go to. You can Google that. You can go to Google Scholar and just pull it up.
In this case, there is no judgment because the case hasn't even been heard yet.
Yeah.
At this point in the game. All right, so it's going to be one to keep an eye on. Eventually, it could have some sort of an effect on this
it won't,
selective service system. What do you mean? Like down the road, you're saying the judges will not...
So, for it to matter at all, it would have to be a U.S. Supreme Court case. Lower level federal courts will rule silly things sometimes. The Supreme Court is not... So, if the military decides they want to draft women, that's going to be approved. The court is not going to overrule their decision either way. The court has a history of being smart enough to realize what is and isn't kind of a core government function and just never opposing those, and also never really making a solid legal argument, just kind of pretending that it's not. Like, they're never going to rule that you don't have to pay taxes. They're never going to rule that the military can't do something that it wants to do. They upheld concentration camps with kind of no real legal argument, and they're not going to declare that the draft is unconstitutional, and they're not going to tell the military who they have to draft. It's just not going to happen.
Interesting predictions. And Melanie did go to law school, by the way, just in case you were wondering. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. You can join us and bring up whatever's on your mind. If you're in the military, you've got some feelings about the draft, the selective service. I think the draft needs to be abolished entirely. 855-450-FREE, like freedom, and the selective service, rather, also should be abolished entirely. This is Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. Dial on in toll-free. Join us here. We got another ridiculous situation with courts on the way. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Ian and Melanie in the studio here tonight. Also, Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You want to learn about the basics about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency? Get started at Bitcoin.com with their Bitcoin Academy. They can also help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy some Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend your Bitcoin. Plus, you can read the latest news or engage with the community on the Bitcoin.com forum. Just go to Bitcoin.com and get interactive there. There's a lot of free stuff there. A lot of good information at Bitcoin.com. We go to the phones, to the fun. Peter is on the line in California listening or listens to our podcast. Go ahead, Peter.
Hey, guys. Just wanted to get your opinion on something that happened with me the other night when I got pulled over.
Oh, okay.
And I felt it was fairly unjust.
There's a good chance of that.
Well, there's a 99+% chance that it was unjust.
Yeah. So I had a couple drinks. I was a little over the limit. I had California stopped, a stop sign, got pulled over legitimately. Came up, ended up arresting me. I ended up going to jail. But where I had pulled over was a perfectly legal spot to park. I wasn't obstructing anything. They end up towing my car, get out of jail 16 hours later. By the time I get it out of the impound, $700 later.
Oof. Damn.
And I just thought to myself, first of all, I had to go to the police station and pay them $110 for the privilege to go to the tow yard and bail my car out.
Yep.
But the whole issue I had was I could legally park my car there for 3 days and never get towed. I was legally parked, and it just seemed like extortion to me. I mean, just
that's totally what this is. Yeah.
I know. And
so you said it was private property. Where did you park the car?
It was on a public street, but it was in front of somebody's house. Where in California, I can legally park a car there for 3 days. Mm-hmm. After 3 days, if you don't move it, they can legally tow you if the neighbors complain. But
I suspect that I'm just going to guess here that I suspect that in California, if you are parked on a public way, as they call them, a public street, that they can go ahead and tow you just because you're parked on the public street. Whereas if you were on a private lot, that might have been a little bit different. If you had parked at a shopping center or something like that, they may have left it there. I imagine different police departments in different states treat these things differently.
They might have legal authorization to tow you just if you're drunk also, whether you're parked legally or not.
That's what I was thinking, but I was thinking that is so ridiculous, though. When I'm parked legally, the car's not hurting anything. Just seems absurd.
So what happened with the stop? I mean, you say you'd had a couple of drinks. Did they have you? Sure. Did they demand that you do roadside tests? And did you agree to that demand or not?
Unfortunately, I did. I did okay with the test. He could smell the alcohol in my breath. My breathalyzer was a 0.10.
But how do you know you did okay with the test?
Well, I mean, I was really a 0.10. I'm pretty damn functional. I mean, at least I felt that.
Right, but you have to kind of be Olympic athlete level to successfully pass a road sobriety test based on the standard. So that's kind of why I'm wondering how you know you did well on it.
I agree with you on that because the statement I did make to the officer is, first of all, my one foot in front of the other little dance they have you do, even without a drink, I have a hard time doing that, like what you're saying.
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why it's a bad idea to consent to the roadside sobriety test. Now, I don't know what the rules are in every state, but as I understand it, basically consenting to that test, you're then leaving everything up to the arbitrary decision of the police officer, who, of course, is more likely to decide that you haven't passed the test than that you have passed the test. And as Melanie pointed out, it is made to be difficult to pass. As you pointed out, as a sober individual, it's difficult. So there's really no benefit to, as I understand it, and please, somebody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about this, but as I understand it, there's absolutely no benent to you to take that roadside sobriety test.
I mean, that's going to be state by state.
I wish I went that.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Yeah, I just ended up No, I agree with you 100% now, but it's after the fact.
Sure, of course, but it's not after the fact for the people who are listening who could possibly benefit from this circumstance, from knowing about this. Now, again, it depends on the state. It depends on whatever the local rules are, but is it true that you can actually refuse the roadside breathalyzer but insist to be taken back to the station and do the one in the station because that one's more accurate, or is that
100%? 100%.
That is true?
100% true.
Okay.
I can decline the roadside gymnastics.
Yep.
I can refuse the roadside breathalyzer and either do a blood test or do the breathalyzer back at the station.
Mm-hmm.
So what they ended up doing, they ended up having a CHP show up. He had the big fancy suitcase-looking official, and that's the one that they had me breathe into, because the roadside ones, the handheld ones, were drastically different.
Mm.
I would say within 0.3 off of each reading. So they were highly, highly inaccurate.
Well, how long in between tests?
2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
So very, very brief. The one with the CHP was, the same both times.
Have you had a DUI before, Peter?
This is my second one.
Second one. All right. I imagine that's not going to go too well in court for you.
Yeah, I mean, so breathalyzers do tend to be kind of wildly inaccurate. I mean, I don't know if you feel like you were actually at a 0.1, maybe the test is just wrong. I don't know, but
well, either way,
if that's not true, then
I just felt like getting towed when you're parked illegally just seemed really excessive, and then.
Yeah, well, they can do whatever they want to do. I don't think my guess is if you talked to an attorney in California about it, they would tell you that you don't have a leg to stand on in that particular case, that this is likely the typical way that they treat people who get DUIs is they don't do them any favors. They don't leave the car sitting there so they can, that the victim of the police or whatever can just go and go back to it the next day. Because certainly not everybody who's drinking and driving is a danger. And you may not have been a danger, just made a slight mistake that got you pulled over. But I'm sorry to hear about that. I don't think you probably have a leg to stand on legally, would be my guess.
No, probably not. Okay, well, hey, you guys have a good evening.
Hey, Peter, good luck, man. Thanks for the call tonight. I do appreciate it, because there are people who I think can benefit from having heard this conversation, even though he's up S Creek without a paddle. At this point, maybe he can hope to get a plea deal or something like that on this, even though it's his second DUI.
Yeah, so
it's going to make it a lot harder.
The best thing to do is especially if you know you already have a DWI, because he didn't sound to me like he was claiming total innocence. It wasn't like he was claiming I wasn't drinking at all, and then
he
I got a positive reading.
Right.
So if that's the case, you can't do anything about it. If you don't drink and still get arrested for drinking, then you obviously have no control over that. But if you already have a DWI, maybe you don't, or even if you don't, but especially if you do, maybe don't go out and drink and then drive. I mean, that's kind of the simplest way. Like, all day long, every day.
You say this as a former heavy drinker.
Yeah. All day long, every day, people get arrested for absolutely no reason, for things that are completely out of their control. Don't give them a reason.
The toll-free number tonight is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. You can bring up whatever is on your mind, but generally it's probably a good idea to not take that roadside sobriety test. I don't know which states punish you for not doing it. I think there's some states where you have to do it if you're young, but more coming up.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live. Dial toll free. Join us here if you want. You can bring up what you want. We're talking about government court stuff, specifically the draft decision that wasn't really a decision at all. That case hasn't even been heard yet. That was a decision to not toss the case out, basically, is what we talked about in the first segment. Then we had a guy call in upset because the cops had taken his car after he got popped for a DUI in California. It's Ian in the studio here tonight.
And Melanie.
Our toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Discord on-air call-in lines are open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm. And basically, and you didn't disagree with me on this, Melanie, it's probably completely within the purview of the police in California and in many other states. If you park on a public street, they can have you towed.
Yeah, I mean, so who gets parking regulations in California is not really something I studied ever. That's kind of really specific, really local.
Sure, but generally the government's in charge of the roads unless it's a private road. So if the government is in charge of the roads, they can take your car off the road for whatever reason they want.
I don't know if he could. Well, so if there's public parking, they can't typically just tow you because they feel like it. If you're driving drunk, they can generally tow your car.
Yeah. In this case, it's part of the arrest.
Even if that was a legal place to park, he still didn't park legally because it's not legal to park your car while you're drunk.
Correct.
Unless you're on just totally private land, and that's probably going to vary by state.
And if they are conducting an investigation, that's evidence. They could argue that, they can collect your car as part of the evidence in the case. They likely have the right to go through your car after you've been arrested.
Well, if they tow it, they have a right to go through it on those grounds legally.
Yeah, so that's what they want to do, right? Like they want to hit you with a DUI, then they want to take your car in, and they want to search through it, and they want to find something else that's illegal in there, maybe a handgun or something else that you can't have in California, a bag of cocaine, for instance, and then they want to charge you with extra crimes on top of that. So it's in their interests, not yours. It's in their interest to take your car from you, and they will, because it doesn't cost them anything. You got to pay to get it out.
Well, yeah, and I'm not willing to say that this is a case where you were just minding your own business and then the police came and attacked you for absolutely no reason. We can argue over ownerless if that the roads are ownerless properly, so how recklessly can I act on them? Driving around drunk is not, or at a .1 is
isn't that drunk though, right? I mean, that's buzzed.
You shouldn't be driving at a .1.
Didn't it used to be legal to be a .1? And then they lowered it to like
in Louisiana, the limit was .1. Everyone else was .08.
Right, but didn't they lower it to .08 in the other states?
And
I feel like I
think
heard
only one state.
Really? They started at .08? Because I could have sworn I heard
most places were already at .08 when Louisiana was basically forced to lower it from .1.
So anyway, I did pull up the Pot Brothers at Law. They've got their 1 minute tip of the day that they've been doing. Now, these are a couple of guys who are attorneys out in California. I don't know what their politics are. They're probably just, obey the law kind of attorneys. But they do have some good advice for people, young people in general, as far as interacting with police. They have Shut the F Up Fridays, where they just basically shout at the camera that people should shut the F up when dealing with the police. And they do have one where they're talking about DUI checkpoints. They say that in California, which is where our caller was calling from, they say that in California, and I can't play the video here because it's somewhat profane, and I didn't have time to bleep it. But they say that you do not have to do the roadside sobriety test unless you're under 21. So apparently under 21 drivers in California do have some kind of obligation to perform the roadside sobriety.
Which is a weird argument.
Why?
Because we're trying to determine if you're drunk, and so I'm saying it's worse to drive drunk if you're under 21. If you're over 21, it's kind of okay to drive drunk.
That is kind of what it says,
Which there actually was a case in Louisiana when they wanted to lower the underage limit is not .08. It's lower than that.
It's .02, right? Or something like that?
I think it's .02, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, in some places it is.
But a defendant didn't sue, but appealed that on the grounds of age discrimination, and the court basically came back and said, well, older people have more experience with drinking
and driving.
So it's worse when you do it because you're not as experienced at drunk driving.
Wow, the court actually said that.
Yes.
Wow. Gee, do you think those judges have had a few drinks and drove at some point?
Almost sure they have. I mean, they get judges from the population. They don't descend from heaven. Like they just pull them from
right. And you've been to law school
else.
Where they actually apparently paid to have you get drunk at parties regularly.
Yeah, they provided all kinds of alcohol there. pretended like they didn't, but it sure appeared there out of nowhere.
So people in the legal profession have a long experience of either drinking heavily themselves or at the very least being around many of their colleagues who are drinking heavily.
Well, I don't want to extrapolate Louisiana at LSU to
it's
all
got to be like
lawyers
that
in the
everywhere.
country, but
Come on. It's like that everywhere.
There are professions that have higher rates of substance abuse, and lawyer is
it
one
of them?
Yeah.
Really? If you want to join us here, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. So again, we're not giving you legal advice. I mean, you're not an attorney, Melanie, and I'm not either. You just did go to law school, so you're as close to an attorney as
anybody. And I wouldn't be an attorney
be.
in every 50 states anyway, even if I was. But
yeah.
The other thing is, so people will say things like you have the right to deny. Roadside tests, I think you should kind of deny anyway.
On principle.
Well, no, on the grounds that you're going to fail it, even if you've never drank or done drugs in your life.
Well, that seems like a good principle.
So, that's a practical concern,
deny,
not really a principle.
But the principle would be to deny the roadside test.
As far as breathalyzers and blood tests, you can be in a situation where, you have a legal right to deny these things, and maybe sometimes lawyers and YouTube videos will tell you that, but in some states, if you deny them, then they'll suspend your license for a year or something like that. So
that can happen.
So look up where you live,
right,
what the case is, what the statute is, and then make a decision from there.
Yeah, it is a different situation in some states, but I think someone would argue, and I think rightfully so, that even if you lose your license for 6 months, which is I think what the default is here in New Hampshire, if you don't do the breathalyzer and you lose a license for 6 months, there's a good chance you're going to lose your license anyway if you get convicted of a DUI.
Well, yeah, so if you're drunk, then, that's one thing, but you can be totally sober and fail a roadside test or even fail a breathalyzer sometimes. Mm-hmm. So if you know you're sober, request the blood test if you're failing the breathalyzer. Sometimes they're not going to give it to you anyway. You kind of have limited control there, but yeah, so, I mean, this isn't just advice to drunk people. This
is advice
anyone
for
who drives a car, losing your license is like how you're going to get to work. You're kind of screwed.
Yeah, it's pretty serious, especially if you live in a place that, you have to travel to get to work.
And then what's more severe, the penalty for refusing the test, the penalty for the DWI, or the penalty for driving without a license? Because that's the real conclusion. I'm not going to just be like, hey, electric company, I'm just not going to pay you for 6 months.
Right.
Okay, cool. And then just not drive to work. That's not a option that exists on this plane of reality. Yeah. The option is drive without a license.
Well, I mean, you could always Uber or get a cab, but that's expensive.
If you live in a city.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a cab outside of a city, but it's going to cost you a lot of money.
If you live in a city, you can get an Uber or a cab.
So if you want to join us, you can here. We've also got this story out of Columbia City, Oregon from LifeSite News that you shared with me, Melanie. I'll just go ahead and share the story, and then I know you've got some comments that you definitely feel likely strongly about this. 60% of Americans, like 60% of them, Michael Bowman opposes taxpayer funding of abortion. So you can tell that there's an editorial viewpoint on this site. It is, after all, called LifeSite. Unlike most Americans, he's currently squaring off against the Internal Revenue Service to avoid funding abortion. Bowman is a 53-year-old Christian and contract engineer in Columbia City, Oregon. He has refused to file a tax return or pay taxes since 1999. The Oregonian reports, citing the federal government's funding of the abortion industry. So he is he's protesting taxes. Although he's saying he's not a tax protester.
That fails 100 times out of 100.
The protest of taxes, you mean? More coming up here in moments. But they claim he's had a big victory in court.
Yeah, they claim that.
And we'll see what that claim exactly is coming up here in moments. Your calls and thoughts welcome on Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Dial toll free. Bring up whatever you want, whether you want to talk about DUI or the draft. These are all big issues for a lot of people. You're certainly welcome to weigh in on those or bring up anything that you want. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Melanie.
Again, the number 855-450-FREE, like freedom. Also, the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. Head over to Discord. Get interactive with other Free Talk Live listeners. You just go to discord.lrn.fm. You ought to probably have the Discord app, but you don't need to. You can use their web version, and then at the very least gives you the ability to text chat with other folks. But if you want to call in, I think you need the actual app. Anyway, discord.lrn.fm. It's open 24/7. During the show, you can use it to call in, but you can also, during the show, chat with other Free Talk Live listeners who are in the On Air Now room. And there's other rooms as well, like cryptocurrency and gaming, other discussions going on simultaneously there on the Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. We're talking about a 53-year-old man in Columbia City, Oregon, who has refused apparently to file taxes since 1999, and he cited the federal government's funding of the abortion industry, saying, quote, "I'm not a tax protester. I love my country. I have a duty to my country, and I have a duty to my conscience."
Yeah, Republicans have this weird, you need to respect the government, I'm stockpiling arms against thing going on, and it's just really inconsistent. So yeah,
you're right about that. Having recently gotten involved with the Republican Party here in New Hampshire after the Libertarian Party lost its ballot access,
that just seems interesting to watch to me.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting so far. I've been pretty pleased with how welcoming they've been, not just towards me, but also
I think they're just confused
towards our. Well, I think they're desperate. Because they're dying, basically. The Republican Party in southwestern New Hampshire is basically over 60 and probably over 65. Anybody who shows up under the age of 50, they get very excited. So there's that factor. And then there's also, you're right, they have this viewpoint of we're against the nanny state. Like they're firmly, at least in western New Hampshire, they're firmly against the nanny state. They don't even support the smoking ban that the city of Keene put in place that bans people under the age of 21 from smoking. So they're against that. So they seem to be in the right place on a number of different issues. But yet, you're right, they still have this worship for the United States federal government. The idea of the nation is still something that is very near and dear to them. They stand up, they do the Pledge of Allegiance together. They sometimes will sing a hymn to the state immediately thereafter. Yeah, it's like the one that's "My Country," that one. I don't know what it's called, but I think it's called "My Country 'Tis of Thee." But anyway, that song. Usually there's this one old guy who, as soon as the Pledge of Allegiance is over, he just strikes up with that song, and the entire room joins him. At the last meeting, though, he wasn't there, so they didn't sing.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of their key provisions, and there's like 3 main points that they have, and I like 2 of the 3. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I like 2 out of their 3 points.
That's still a 67%.
Wait, no, 67% was a D when I was going to school. You had to get a 64.
Maybe it is. That's still failing really hard. You know what? It probably was. You had to get C's to pass in college, though.
Yeah, that's true. But they're one thing they're all in favor of the individual is what they say in one of their planks. And then in another plank, they're in favor of the free market, supposedly in favor of the free market. So those 2 planks are good. The third plank, though, which is I think their middle plank, is something about how American exceptionalism, like they're in favor of American exceptionalism, which of course the belief that America is the best and that the people in America are the best and all that nonsense.
Which is a weird thing to say you're in favor of an allegation of fact. I'm in favor of water is wet. Like, well, it either is or it isn't, regardless of you're in favor of it. Mm-hmm. America's either better or it's not, regardless of whether you're in favor of it. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't want to paraphrase what they're saying, so I'll just read it since we're talking about it here. Their statement is, "We are the party of American exceptionalism, and we believe our nation is strongest when we practice peace through strength."
Well, okay, that's consistent at least.
So that's the one that I disagree with. I think that what I'd like to see happen to that one is it be changed to be more of New Hampshire exceptionalism, because I think that would still pander to the people that believe they're the best, but make it more like New Hampshire specific so we can focus on secession. That's my plan.
I mean, that would be an improvement.
Yeah, that's my plan. So again, if you
I don't think they're going to go for that.
Well, you know what? After 20 years, they may have to, because they're not bringing in young people. Maybe the Republican parties in other parts of New Hampshire are doing better as far as bringing young people in, but out here, I mean, we're talking about 26 people attending your typical meeting, and this is for the entire the county. The big meeting, like right after the election, had 40 people at it, which is, that's not a small turnout. But the people at these meetings are elderly, and they are just desperately trying to bring young people in. So what I'm saying here is, if you are a libertarian who wants to actually have an effect taking over the old party system, New Hampshire is exceptionally ripe for this particular opportunity. And again, I can't speak for the other areas of New Hampshire. I can't speak for the Democratic Party. Even though I was a Democrat prior to being a libertarian for a few years, I never actually went to the party meetings in those cases, because they always had them in the evenings, and I never really felt like I would be particularly welcome, because they've always been way more hostile to me. Now, remember, they stopped a couple of the libertarians who'd moved here like a decade ago. They actually had a doorman at their party meeting who stopped them from coming in when they first wanted to come and check out the Democrat Party. Eventually, they ended up relenting and letting them in and being more friendly towards them. And one of them ended up changing into a real full-on socialist and left New Hampshire. So it's sad when that happens. It's sad when libertarians lose their way and lose their principles. But it's happened, sadly, on more than one occasion up here. So back to the story here on this man protesting paying taxes, who says he's not a protester. He says he loves his country and has a duty to his country. Now, that's an interesting claim as well. I mean, there's a lot that we can pick apart here, Melanie. A duty to the country, a duty is basically an obligation, right? Like, you have to do a certain thing. If you have a duty to perform a task, you're obligated to perform that task. You've had an agreement with somebody that says, I, Melanie, will perform this task for you. It is my duty. And usually you're getting something in return for that, right?
Well, I think most people who have kind of that duty-based morality, honor-based morality, are less contractual than that.
What do you mean? It's just all in their head?
When you're talking about an agreement and getting paid, I don't...
No. Getting paid isn't what I mean. Like, you can receive something that's not payment, right? So in the case of the government... Okay,
so like military protection in
the case of the government,
standing for the flag or something.
Yeah. So with citizenship...
I don't think that they look at it that way. I don't think they look at it in that...
Who? The person who has the duty?
Well...
Doesn't look at...
Kind of conservative GOP members in... I'm assuming he's GOP. He sounds like it. That kind of culture, I don't think, looks at it in that transactional way.
No, they just feel like they have a duty with no obligation in return, that there's just a duty put upon them in return for nothing.
I think that they feel like they have duties, and I think that they feel like the government and other people have duties, but I don't feel like they look at it as an exchange.
I see. Well, they're looking at it wrong, then, because when you look at the definition of citizen, I mean, it's very, very clear, whether it's in a law dictionary or it's in the dictionary, the regular dictionary. The definition of citizen is frequently defined as a person who has a duty of allegiance in return for an obligation of protection. That's generally the definition of citizen. So the duty is you do what you're told. You pay the taxes, you jump through the hoops, you do whatever, obedience measures are being put upon you. It's your duty. But in return, the government is supposed to provide you with protection. And we've seen with court case after court case that they are not obligated to protect you. They have no such obligation to you. They've made it crystal clear in the Supreme Court in a myriad of court cases. Warren versus District of Columbia is the first one that comes to mind, but a quick Google of the search, no obligation to protect, will find multiple cases that affirm the same claim, and that is to say that the government says clearly, we don't have an obligation to protect you, nor do we have any obligation to you whatsoever. So therefore, the agreement of citizenship is null. It's null and void because you don't have a duty if there's no obligation on their side. Obviously, there was no signed agreement anyway, so the whole thing is this social contract theory nonsense. But either way, even if there's no agreement, if we're just talking about this verbal social contract concept, the other side has reneged on its obligations, which therefore means you have no obligation to have a duty to them. That's the way I understand it.
I mean, I don't think that's how they... You're kind of superimposing your own structure onto that, I think. I don't think that's how they look at it. But, I mean, I think
they're going to try to throw you in jail.
They look at it.
They're going to do whatever they want.
No, I mean the people, not the
Oh, you're talking about the victims, the individuals who believe they have a duty. Sure, they are absolutely, completely brainwashed into this nonsense. But to this guy's credit, he is stepping outside of the box, and he's saying, well, yeah, I don't really feel like I've got a duty because you're not doing what I want, government. You're funding abortions, and so therefore he's not paying tax. Do you operate a retail business and are looking for a solution for point-of-sale cryptocurrency acceptance? It's never been easier thanks to AnyPay.global. There's no paperwork or approval process to open an account. If you already have a tablet at your cash register, you're almost done. Just sign up at AnyPay.global, drop your personal crypto wallet addresses in our setup page, and then load our app. That's it. You're accepting cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Dash at your store. Get started now at AnyPay.global. That's AnyPay.global.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Should people be able to just decide to not pay taxes because they don't agree with what the government's doing? I say they absolutely should. And there's one guy in Oregon who is doing just that over the issue of abortion in his particular case. But I don't think it just has to be abortion. It could be whatever issue it is that you disagree with. I, for instance, don't agree with bombing innocent people around the world. I think that's a good one. Then again, I also don't pretty much agree with the existence of the entire federal government. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Melanie.
And our toll-free number, if you want to join the discussion, here's 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And there's a lot to kind of pick apart here in this story out of Columbia City, Oregon, where a 53-year-old self-professed Christian man, Michael Bowman, has apparently not paid taxes since 1999. The government is finally coming after him. And he says, quote, "I'm not a tax protester. I love my country. I have a duty to my country. I have a duty to my conscience." And ultimately, I agree with, at the very least, the last part of it. I don't agree that anybody has a duty to the government. And, of course, you never really know. When he says country, does he mean the government? Or when he says country, does he mean the sort of idea of America?
Yeah, they obfuscate that, too. They create a
It's
society...
not on purpose, though.
Well...
At least
usually
it's not his
people
fault.
Don't obfuscate things on purpose.
Right, yeah. He's just kind of victim of the obfuscation of what the government does with these terms. They kind of call themselves the United States, but at the same time they call themselves the country or America, and so they tie all these words together.
Well, that's what they are, but conservative Republicans will have this idea of a society in their head and call that the country. And then pretend like the government is something else.
They have an ideal that's the country,
but they
basically?
Kind of act like it's real, and then they call the government, they act as if the government is a separate entity.
Mm-hmm. From that concept.
The government that's in their head, and so they can be loyal to one and not the other, I guess.
So I see what you're saying. So meaning that they have this ideal of what the country should be, and then there's the government that doesn't meet that ideal, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Well, right, but a lot of people have ideals of things that they wish existed.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't necessarily, I guess maybe most people do, but having an ideal of something is not the same as pretending that the real thing doesn't exist, or pretending that the real thing is something other than what it is. Like pretending that the United States federal government is not the country is just...
Well, it's not.
An odd interpretation of the English language.
Yeah, what is the country, right? Like, the country can mean different things to different people. Country could just simply be the idea of America. It could be the land. The government isn't the land, right? The government is an idea. It is a collectively held belief that a thing exists that doesn't actually exist. Cars exist. Men with badges exist. The government's just this sort of collective delusion that ties all these individuals loosely together with one another.
Well, or it's an organization of thieves and murderers, but yeah, so, but then if you think that a nation is something other than a country, when someone attacks, or something other than a government, if someone attacks the government, you shouldn't care, at least not on that basis.
Well, nation is a better word that I think is more aligned with government. I don't know if country is as much either. But either way, we can take a closer look at some of these words. But let's go to Sarah in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Sarah.
Yes, I met one of the pedestrians who was struck by cars last year today on the bus. And she was one of the 800. So she's the second one I met this year.
Okay, and what was her circumstance?
Well, I think one of her legs from the knee down was busted. So, and I think the other one, he was in a wheelchair and he got his whole leg busted. So the 800
was she
people were
drunk?
struck by cars. You know what? I had to get off the next stop. So I never knew. I just knew that I know.
You didn't have a long enough conversation with her, because what we found was that a lot of the people who are getting into car accidents as pedestrians down there are drunk. So they're, stumbling around, falling into the road and getting hit by cars in basically what is a unavoidable accident for the driver, or very difficult to avoid. It could have been avoided by the person who was drunk, by them not being S-face drunk and, stumbling through the streets. But ultimately, that was their decision.
Oh, you know what? I never got to ask for the story, but why is it that 13 years ago, there was instead of killing 86 pedestrians last year, 15 years ago we only killed 47, and that's when we had red light
Maybe
cameras.
people are getting more drunk.
People 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
Okay, that's what we still had. We still had 3 red light cameras in Albuquerque, 3 in Rio Rancho, and 5 speeding bans in Rio Rancho.
Yeah, but you didn't even ask this lady if she had gotten hit at an intersection, right?
No, I just encouraged her to go down to city council meeting and speak up about what happened. And
no amount of speeding vans, no amount of red light cameras, no amount of video cameras is going to stop drunk people from stumbling out in front of oncoming cars.
Okay, but I'm asking you, why is it when we have red light cameras, we were number seventh in the nation?
Sarah,
every time we get rid of the red
I don't know
light
how many
cameras,
times I can tell you about this. Maybe you haven't gotten the concept yet. It's called correlation versus causation. They're not the same thing. So when a statistic, like you're citing, statistic of people getting involved in, accidents as pedestrians with cars, when that number goes down and you find a different number that has also gone down, in this case the number of red light cameras, that has also gone down over that same time frame, it may be an interesting coincidence. It may be related, but there's no way that you can draw a conclusion from both of those things happening in the same time frame. That's, they're correlative. They correlate with one another. They happened at the same time frame. They happen to be in the same direction. But there's no way that you can say they're causative, meaning that you can't say that the reduction in red light cameras caused the reduction in car accidents involving pedestrians. Does that make any sense to you at all?
No, you're just full of it. You know what? I make a lot of sense. You make no sense.
I'm full of it.
Before we had.
By the way, Sarah, did you hear the good news about KABQ there in Albuquerque that we're now on live?
Okay, so live every day. You're on.
That's right, every weekday. We're now, unless something went wrong tonight, which hopefully nothing has gone wrong. Technically, everything's probably working smoothly, so we should be there on the radio. So welcome to. I'm going to presume we're on because they were a weekend affiliate and they lost a show during the week. The Norman Goldman show went under last week, basically. So they needed something, and we were already on at nights. So they've moved us up to our live slot. So welcome to our progressive, one of our progressive stations, KABQ there in Albuquerque. I think it's AM 1350 if I'm remembering that correctly, but I didn't pull up my list here to ensure of that. I will double check. But welcome aboard. If you're listening to the show here, it really is open phones every single night, and Sarah is the proof that is actually the case. That you can call in here and you can bring up anything you want. You don't have to agree with us. In fact, we like it when we have disagreements, which is one of the reasons why I like your calls, Sarah, because you're not afraid to challenge. But the other thing is, Sarah, you don't listen, and you have a position, you want to represent that position, and that's fine. You're certainly welcome to call into the show and do that. But you don't even listen. When I tell you the difference between correlation and causation, you tell me I'm full of it.
Well, the thing about it is that you should be thankful that that I'm on disability to call the show. I'm the one that made it possible that we're live on Albuquerque. know,
now you're
if
going to
I
take.
was working-
Now you're going to wait. Are you saying you put Norman Goldman out of business?
No, I'm saying that I'm the one that made this show popular where they want to have it live here on Albuquerque.
You think
every day.
your one listenership, you, the one person listening to one of the people listening to KABQ there in Albuquerque, you have that much influence that you swung with the program director there. What's the program director's name of the station?
Well, you know what?
Oh, you never called her and talked to her, right? Okay. Thanks for the call tonight, Sarah. Bye-bye. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. It's all thanks to Sarah. We couldn't have done it without her. More coming up here. You can bring up anything you want. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live, dial in, bring up what you want here. Our numbers are open to you. 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Melanie.
Don't forget, you can join us in real life at the upcoming Fork Fest. Fork Fest is a libertarian camping event in northern New Hampshire, the beautiful Rogers Campground right in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And it's the 5 days before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. The days for Fork Fest this year are scheduled to be June 13th through June 18th. And that's about the only scheduling or officialness that you're going to get, because Fork Fest is not organized by anybody. There's no one in charge, which means that everybody is in charge, meaning you are in charge of your own experience. So if you just want to go and camp and hang out with other liberty-minded people, voluntarists, liberty-loving anarchists, libertarian types, then you can do that. Or you can create a thing for those people who are going to be there to do. So maybe you want to, have a poker game, or you want to create some sort of musical event or throw a party. That is up to you. And you can join the Forkfest forum. It's unofficial. And the Forkfest chat room, also unofficial, because there's nothing official with Forkfest on this unofficial website, forkfest.party. It's again June 13th through the 18th at forkfest.party. Go there to learn more about that. We will be broadcasting from the event, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. So we're talking about a gentleman from the Columbia City, Oregon area. This story coming from LifeSite News, which is clearly a pro-life opinion piece, from Calvin Freeberger, reporting on the man Michael Bowman, age 53, so-called self-professed Christian, saying that he has a duty to his country and a duty to his conscience. And I would argue that if you are someone who believes you have a duty to your government, which I don't think you do, because as I pointed out earlier, the government has claimed they don't have an obligation to protect you, so therefore you shouldn't have any duty to them. But even if you still believe that you have a duty to the government, I still think your duty to your own conscience should be higher than that. So if it is your conscience that you don't want to support, let's say, war in another country, because in this guy's case, he's all about abortion. But for me, I am anti-war. I think that peace is very important. And I certainly don't want money that I have earned going to benefit a war effort. And so it is my duty to my conscience to not be involved in the continued proliferation of armed conflict around the planet. So whatever it is that you believe that your conscience, whatever your conscience is calling you to do or is calling you to support, I think that should be primary. Do you agree with me on that one?
I mean, especially since I don't think that you have any obligations to a state whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, obviously.
Okay. So the state, unfortunately, does believe that you have obligations to them, and that's why they're prosecuting this guy. According to the story, the IRS has sent him numerous warnings over unpaid taxes from 2002 to 2014, and the 2012 Oregon Department of Revenue began garnishing money from his bank account. In response, he started cashing out his paychecks and leaving only a minimum balance in his account. That, the federal authorities say, constituted, quote, removing his income from the reach of taxing authorities. They indicted him for felony tax evasion in the amount of $356,857, as well as 4 misdemeanor counts of willful failure to file tax returns. His attorney, Matthew Schindler, says that his client was fully transparent every step of the way, from disclosing all of his paychecks to cashing them at his own bank under his own name. His attorney says, quote, like a player collapsing as they lose Twister, the government has reached, that's pretty good, it's a nice visual, the government has reached too far forward and stretched way too far back his motion to dismiss read. Last week, U.S. District Judge Michael Mossman sided with Bowman on the felony charge, ruling the feds failed to show that he had attempted to conceal his income or deceive the government. Prosecutors remain free to reintroduce the charge in the future and are currently weighing whether to do so. So, Melanie, you had said this story was dishonest, that the headline...
Well, the headline is dishonest. I don't know if the story is dishonest or not.
The headline here reads, U.S. Christian who refuses to pay taxes until abortion is defunded has his first big win in court.
Yeah, so that kind of implies that
you're saying that's not a big win?
Won something in regards to this case.
He won the motion to dismiss. I mean, they motioned to dismiss the felony charge, and the judge dismissed it.
Right, so he
it sounds like it was without prejudice, but
with
prejudice. Which one's the one where they can't bring it back? Is that without prejudice?
Because it's prejudiced against the motion. So if it's with prejudice, they can't bring it back.
Okay, so he must have dismissed it without prejudice then, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, it's not a big win.
Under charges for failure to file and failure to pay,
but misdemeanors. I mean, that's nowhere near as bad. I mean, they dropped the felony charge. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, right?
That kind of has nothing to do with his argument, though. So it doesn't cite what statute they charged him under, so I can't look it up and say if he committed that or didn't commit that based on these facts.
Willful failure to file, whatever charge that is.
He's still charged with that.
Right.
He's not charged with the
hiding
income because he wasn't doing that.
Felony tax evasion is what they were claiming. So that's right. Well, I mean, but it's common, though, Melanie, as you know, for prosecutors to bring charges that may not have any real backing behind them,
right,
simply because they want to intimidate you.
So if you go rob a bank and then you're charged with robbing a bank and murder one, and you didn't kill anybody, and they drop the murder one charge, that's not a major win based on your argument or at all.
Sure, but I mean, I would agree with you. This isn't a big win, but it's not something to be, laughed about. I mean, it's a pretty big deal to. It's an accomplishment to get them to drop a felony charge, I would say.
Maybe. So, I mean,
because a lot of time a judge won't rule in advance. Like if you motion to dismiss a charge in advance of actually going to trial, the judge will say, "Bring it up at trial." Like a lot of times they won't even do anything in advance of the actual trial.
Well, they're supposed to if it's a proper motion and you're actually charged with that. But
sure, but they can put it off. They can just be like, yeah, bring it up at trial. We'll address it in court.
No, if there's grounds for a motion to dismiss, they're supposed to hear the motion to dismiss.
Sure,
I mean,
but they'll hear it during the trial. What I'm saying is they'll hear it during the trial. They won't. I've seen it time and time again, at least here in New Hampshire.
I mean, I believe that happens. But, yeah, so if you file a motion to dismiss and it gets heard, that's not like some outstanding win, and it's definitely not some outstanding win based on... I mean, to me, this article makes it sound like he's progressing in his I don't have to file taxes because I said so court case.
No.
And that is not the case.
He has had no wins around that, yeah. You're right about that.
And because they didn't cite the statute, I can't tell you if he actually violated it or not. They make it sound like he didn't actually violate that particular statute, so it's not completely outrageous that he's not being charged with it.
Well, I mean, the site here this, by the way, you sent to me, this Life Site News. It's clearly an opinion site that has, a pro-life perspective. So obviously they want to make it sound like this guy is on track to winning his case.
Yeah, you can state your opinions without misrepresenting facts, though, is the thing.
Sure, 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. If you want to join us here, you can bring up whatever's on your mind, whether it is, remaining aligned with your conscience in the face of threats from the government, or whatever you want to discuss. We talked about DUI earlier tonight. 855-450-FREE, like freedom.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost-to-listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Hey, it is Free Talk Live. Open phones as always. Toll-free number for you, 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And also want to invite you to our website over at freetalklive.com. You can interact there in a variety of different ways. One of them is, you can subscribe to our podcast if you would like. There's a couple different versions of it. There's the sort of the full version, which has our full shows and the digest versions of the show in it. Or you can subscribe to just the full show podcast or just the digest version. So if you're time challenged, you don't have time to sit and listen to a 2-hour-long podcast 7 days a week, you can subscribe to the digest, and then you'll only have about 20 or 30 minutes a day, which is a lot easier to digest. You can go to feeds.freetalklive.com to find those links there. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. We'll go back to your calls and thoughts. We can talk more about folks deciding they don't want to pay taxes and what their reasons are. Some people are, in this case, this man in court in Oregon is against abortion. I'm against war, against killing innocent people in the Middle East or wherever it is the U.S. military is going next. Hopefully they won't be going into Venezuela. Things are definitely getting heated down there as well. It's Ian and Melanie in the studio here tonight. Let's go to the phones and to your former home state, Melanie, of Louisiana, where Matthew is on the line. Go ahead, Matthew, listening via the TuneIn app.
Yeah, so I am full of it, so I'll happily confess that, and I'm going to take care of that when I get home. But Sarah had called up about the red light cameras in Orleans Parish, next to Jefferson Parish. If you stop at the red light camera, at the red light, like you should, you have a good chance of being carjacked. It is one of the most violent places in the country. They put statues in jail, but they let violent criminals out. So people run these cameras all the time in Orleans Parish, simply as a defensive measure. Because, it's late at night, and you're not really sure what that guy standing at the corner did. Or some people just drive around in condition white, and they do get carjacked.
Condition white?
Yeah, condition white. Best analogy is on a warship. When you turn off the radar, you turn off the sonar, you basically take the night watch crew, everybody goes to bed, no sentries, you're in a docket.
So no defenses whatsoever, no awareness, no situational awareness. You're saying people drive around like that?
Yeah, and in Orleans Parish, you will get carjacked if you're driving around like that.
For sure.
If you're texting on your phone and you're stopped at the red light, bad things could very likely happen to you. So you're saying people are given the choice between sit and wait for a carjacking, perhaps, or blow through a red light safely, because it's you can do it. You can take a right on a red safely at most intersections. Blow through the red light and then get a potential ticket for the red light camera, but ultimately avoid having your car stolen. Right, or possibly something worse happening to you. Because some carjackers, they engage in some recreational target practice because they don't get to the range very much,
Yeah.
So that's, red light cameras can cost lives, too.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I appreciate you sharing that, Matthew. Anything else on your mind tonight?
No, that was about it.
Thanks for the call tonight. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Was that what it was like in your area of Louisiana where you came from, Melanie?
Well, so I was not old enough to remember being around Louisiana. Around New Orleans. We weren't in the city limits in any real way. Residentially, I worked in New Orleans for a while, and I kind of didn't have to deal with that because I just went home at night. You don't want to stick around.
At nighttime is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. David is in New Mexico, listening via the TuneIn app. Hello, David. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, you guys were just talking about motions practice, court pleadings, in conjunction with the due process and rules of civil and or criminal procedure.
Yeah.
And Melanie, you experienced through law school, and this does not need legal advice. But what would you say if a lawyer was working for a client and there was a neutral point, a standstill in the case, but the ball was in your lawyer's court because nothing was going to happen unless your lawyer filed a motion. And then he agreed to file a motion, but it took him 8 months to file a single motion. What would you think of that?
That is nowhere near enough information for me to think anything of it.
Oh, okay, well then I'll just tell the audience. So in the case that I'm involved in, the situation was exactly that. I have a court-appointed attorney, and nothing was going to happen in this case. And this is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the Second Judicial District Court in front of Judge John J. Romero Jr. And nothing was going to happen in this case unless the lawyer for me filed a simple motion. And he agreed to file a motion, said he was going to file a motion, and then never ever filed the motion, even after being badgered 3 or 4 times severely in that 8 months to file that motion, and being ordered to do so by Judge John J. Romero Jr. to file that motion and to write an order that the judge could sign. And the lawyer in 8 months didn't file a motion, and also after the judge ordered him to do it, didn't do it for another 4 or 5 months. And so,
wow.
And I filed a bar complaint. I filed a complaint against that attorney for that negligence and or malice with the Bar Association here in New Mexico and Albuquerque. And they went through their whole thing, and they found that the lawyer had done nothing wrong, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with a lawyer having the ball in his court and being requested to file a simple motion, and then being backed up by the judge himself, asking that lawyer, Jay Mueller, to file that motion, in fact, ordering him to file that motion, and then him still not doing it for another 4 months, and then the aggrieved client, being myself, files a bar complaint, and the Bar Association in New Mexico thinks that's perfectly fine, that the lawyer did absolutely nothing wrong.
Really? So the Bar Association actually wrote you back on your complaint saying, we're not going to do anything about this? This is totally fine?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, they did. I have it in writing.
I mean, that almost sounds to me like a dereliction of duty. If this person is your, even though they're court appointed, they're still supposed to represent you. And if you've asked an attorney to represent you in some way by filing a motion, I mean, I would think that there should be some sort of time limit on that. Certainly not several months.
Well, you heard Lauren's reaction. Your other guest or host there, Lauren.
No, this isn't Lauren. No, Melanie.
Pardon?
Her name's Melanie.
I know it's Melanie tonight. Another night we discussed that, and Lauren reacted Laurel, I'm sorry, reacted basically in shock that an attorney took 8 months to file a simple plea.
Yeah, I find that shocking.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't doubt that your attorney sucks, and I don't.
Well, yeah, they work for the government, right?
That you don't have enough information. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know, based on what he said.
Well, I mean, if it's court appointed, then they're working for the government. They could be a private attorney, but
so that doesn't necessarily mean they're a public defender. They can appoint private attorneys just to random cases.
But don't those private attorneys have to make themselves available for that appointment? They can't just randomly. Can they just randomly appoint any private attorney as a court-appointed attorney? Wow.
A judge can do that. But in this case, these attorneys say, "Please give me work. I throw my hat in the ring. I want this work." Okay, here's another client for you. So the lawyers are asking. The lawyer is soliciting the state to get this work.
And wasn't he billing the whole 8 months? Wasn't he getting paid that whole 8 months for doing nothing?
I have not since they are refusing to give me that information. They're forcing me to file an IPRA request, FOIA request, IPRA in the state, to get that information, and I haven't yet confirmed it. But so I don't know whether he actually took any dollars for that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting detail to learn in that matter. Thank you for the call tonight, David. I appreciate it. If you want to join us here, whatever's on your mind goes. It is up to you. The number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We also have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. Hop into one of those. We'll get you on the air. You'll sound almost like you're sitting in the studio with us. It's Ian and Melanie here tonight. Discord lines are over at discord.lrn.fm. And this is Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. And you may dial in here toll-free to take control of the airwaves. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Melanie.
We're talking about taxes and the not paying of those taxes. And I think if you've got a good reason, you should not pay. I think that if you don't support the government, you shouldn't pay them.
Well,
screw those people.
You don't need a reason. I mean, A, it's your money. B, if you can get away with it. I mean, the reason is I think I can get away with it. Not.
Well, I mean, the reason
specific. I mean, I'm sure you could come up with, a list of immoral programs if you felt like it.
Of course. I mean, the entire government is immoral. Generally, I'm not saying it'll be a success in court because the government runs the court system. They're probably going to end up throwing you in a prison cell.
Well, yeah, and so don't lark and rose it. Like, if you're going to not pay taxes, if you can get away with that, some people can, some people can't. How you do that is you just don't pay taxes. Mm-hmm. You don't write them letters and talk about, well, this is why I am not paying taxes because I hate you and everything you do. Signed me. Here's my return address. Don't do that.
Right.
Because if you don't pay taxes, and as long as you're a regular person and there's not a whole bunch of zeros behind your name, they're going to send you letters before they just show up to arrest you.
You mean if you're not like Wesley Snipes or something like that? Or one of these protesters?
He's an actor, right?
Yeah. You didn't know he went to prison for not paying taxes.
That doesn't mean he's a tax protester. That could just mean he blew the money because he got it all at once. And then...
No, he was actually he was like into the opting out kind of... don't want to be part of the government schemes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to go to jail just to go to jail. Like, don't
draw attention to it, is what
the
you're saying.
IRS. I mean, and you might be somebody who you work a W-2 job and they take it out on the front end. Mm-hmm. And if you do something like claim 10 exemptions, I don't even know if you can do that anymore, but
you're saying
after this
falsely
year,
claim.
But,
you're saying falsely claim exemption.
So, or claim exempt falsely,
mm-hmm.
which is a weird concept.
Now you're talking about perjury, right? If you're swearing to something that's not true, because you sign those documents under the potential charge of perjury, do you not?
Yeah, but the more realistic issue is the second year you do that, they're just going to automatically deduct 28%
mm-hmm.
instead of maybe your lower tax rate.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. If you have that kind of paper trail, or even, say you own your own business and you are a brick and mortar store, well, A, they know you exist. B, maybe you take credit cards and the credit card in PayPal is sending you 1099s for
mm-hmm.
$100,000. There's not a whole lot you can do about that necessarily. But if you're going to go that route, there's not a whole, like, you don't file paperwork to commit tax evasion. You just commit tax evasion. Just go about your business.
Don't talk to them. Ignore. Don't file the paperwork at all. Don't even try, because there's different schemes, right? Like, there's different tax gurus out there, many of whom have gone to prison, who will give you advice on how to fill out these forms in a way that'll somehow get you out of it. And I think a lot of that stuff just puts you in greater danger.
Yeah, and most of the people I've dealt with who have got caught, if they were just a regular person, not too many zeros, and they got caught, the IRS is like, hello, we're the IRS. Did you know that taxes were a thing? Please file the last 3 years of tax returns. Thank you. Have a nice day. The people who did things like write Admiral Court phrases on a 1040 and mail it to the IRS,
mm-hmm.
They got substantial fines.
Really?
In the tens of thousands of dollars.
And by the way, you're saying this as a professional accountant who has handled professionally taxes for a lot of people in businesses.
So you're going to be hit if you don't do anything stupid and other than just not file. You're going to be hit with the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Is that the maximum they can hit you for on failure to file? I thought they can go about like 6 or something.
They have a kind of implicit policy to only ask you for the last 3 years.
Oh, really? But
the
they could
criminal statute of limitations for failure to file is 6 years.
6, okay.
There is no maximum on how far back they can go. So if...
Wait, what? How does that work?
There just isn't one.
Meaning they can...
So if you didn't file a tax return
This guy, for instance,
in
1999 was the last
Yeah, so if you didn't file a tax return 50 years ago, they can't charge you criminally anymore.
Right.
But they can demand that you file it, and if you don't, they can seize your property.
Whoa, okay.
So...
Wow, that's crazy.
They don't usually do that. It's not worth it for just a regular person.
I mean, how many records are going to even exist after 50 years?
And that's part of why I think they only go back 3.
Okay.
Now, if you annoy the IRS, if you annoy some other branch of the government, like the DOJ or the FBI, who then orders the IRS to go after you, or if you're making millions of dollars, they're going to go back however far they feel like going back. I see.
So they can do whatever they want to you, basically.
I mean, yeah.
855-450 free. Speaking of people with a lot of money, according to tcpalm.com, there's more out of the prostitution scandal that has hit recently in the last couple of weeks, with the owner of the Patriots getting caught up, another billionaire who apparently went to a Jack Shack down in Florida and got caught from some kind of a police sting that was going on against that business. Billionaire equity firm owner John Childs is one of several men who's been accused of soliciting prostitution in connection with a Florida spa tied to an international human trafficking ring, police said on Thursday. Childs, who lives seasonally in Indian River Shores, is wanted on a solicitation of prostitution charge. According to a warrant for his arrest, he has not yet been arrested. He owns J.W. Childs Associates, a private equity firm based in Massachusetts. So he's probably a snowbird. He's a prominent donor to several Republican politicians and groups, including former U.S. House Speaker Paul Ryan, Club for Growth, and Mitt Romney. He donated about $4.3 million to Republican candidates and PACs last cycle, according to a review of federal campaign finance records. His largest donation went to America First Action, so they go into all this guy's donations here. Apparently he's a big Republican supporter. We don't really care about all that. Childs hasn't responded to an interview request from TC Palm as of Friday evening. He told Bloomberg that police have not reached out to him about the charge. Quote, "The accusation of solicitation of prostitution is totally false," he told the outlet. He was just looking for a happy ending. "I have retained a lawyer," he says.
Wait, he said that?
No.
Okay.
I added the happy ending part. Childs also lives part-time outside of Boston, and his net worth is $1.2 billion. He told TC Palm in 2008 he'd moved to Vero Beach to escape the cold. Quote, "I had friends there and I came down. I liked what I saw. There were ducks, waterfowl, porpoises in the river, and even a resident bald eagle in a tree, and so I settled," he said in Vero Beach. 6-month investigation revealed human traffickers were luring vulnerable women to massage parlors where they were coerced into working as prostitutes. Indian River County agencies have issued warrants for 173 people on charges ranging from human trafficking to racketeering to soliciting prostitution. Now, if there was actually human trafficking going on at this this lingerie parlor or whatever exactly it was being, erotic massage. I'm not sure how they were, marketing themselves. But if they actually had sex slaves there, then obviously we oppose that. I think I can speak for you on this one.
Yeah, I don't think that's strong enough language. If you were actually engaged in human trafficking, then you should die in a fire. Because as far as I know, that's the slowest, most painful way to die. But they throw that phrase around when they just mean prostitution.
Yeah. And that's not cool, because if we're talking about just women who are, who feel desperate and they decide they want to become prostitutes so they can make some money quickly, and they chose to do that, then that's not trafficking. If, in point of fact, they were trafficked, meaning if they were threatened with violence or their family members were threatened with violence, if somebody sticks...
Or they were just kidnapped.
Right, kidnapped, held against their will. In a lot of cases, you can run, girly, but we know where your family lives, and we're going to kill your little sister is frequently what they will do to control these women. If they're being threatened in some way, or their family members are being threatened, and they have to work under the threat of violence, that's
human
trafficking.
That's sex slavery.
Right.
And then it kind of conflates the two when they just use that to mean all prostitution, because then you don't know if you're dealing with human trafficking or if you're dealing with prostitution.
Right, and it's insulting to the women who choose the profession of prostitution. The suggestion is that everyone involved in prostitution is being trafficked, and that's just not the case. It's not even the case at 95.
I think the suggestion is that we're running out of BS crimes you can charge people for, so now we're going to go around and make stuff sound worse than what it is.
Prostitution needs to be legalized. These billionaires who apparently are just desperate to get their rocks off should not be, and poor people also should not be considered criminals for going and hiring a prostitute. You can call in, share your thoughts, how you feel on legalization of prostitution. Phones are open for you at 855-450-FREE, like freedom. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're launching into the third hour of the program, talking about legalization of prostitution. The issue of prostitution has been brought back into the national press by a couple of billionaires who have warrants for their arrest. The owner of the Patriots is one of them. And then news coming out about this other guy, a major Republican donor named John Childs, who is a billionaire equity firm owner. He also has donated millions of dollars in just the last campaign cycle to Republican candidates. So it's pretty funny to hear about these conservative guys getting popped at a Jack Shack down in Florida because, and I don't know, maybe John Childs is in favor of ending prostitution. I don't know what his viewpoints are, but it certainly doesn't seem to be uncommon for many of the very same people who protest the loudest about things like prostitution and how they should be illegal. They're the ones who end up on the list of Johns when, madams get busted and things like that. And then you find out that the very same people who were calling for prostitution to continue to be criminal are actually the very people who are using those services. So those hypocrisies are so common. I would just jump to the conclusion, probably it might be unfairly, that these, this conservative donor donating to conservative action groups would likely purport to be against the legalization of prostitution, when in fact these people ought to support the ending of the criminalization of prostitution. If you care about sex slavery, if you care about ending sex slavery, then you really ought to be in favor of legalizing prostitution, because there are a few things you can do to make sex slavery less common than legalize prostitution. One of the reasons why it is as common as it is, and it's not that common, just to be clear, most prostitutes are not sex slaves. The supermajority of them, 95% of them, are not sex slaves, at least based on some of the testimony I've seen here in New Hampshire when there's been some proposals to just decriminalize prostitution somewhat, not even legalize it, but to decriminalize it. Some actual prostitutes, not from New Hampshire, but from like Rhode Island or wherever, come up and speak out, and they clarify for these legislators who just don't know the difference. They don't understand. They think that all these prostitutes are sex slaves.
So maybe they should quit charging them with crimes?
Quit charging the prostitutes?
Think that they're sex slaves, yeah.
Right. Yeah, because if you're a slave, then you didn't have a choice in the matter. But all these women and men will tell you that they had a choice in the matter, that they chose to become prostitutes because there's good money in it. Now, there's also significant danger involved, especially if you're a streetwalker. the significant danger of encountering a psycho John. There's also a reverse danger for the Johns encountering a woman who's just there to have them beaten and robbed. That's happened too. So there's danger on both sides of it, and the danger doesn't have to do with the fact that it's sex. I mean, obviously, sex has its own risks involved with STDs and pregnancy and things like that. But the danger of violence, the danger of theft, of robbery happening to both the Johns and the prostitutes, that danger exists because it's illegal. Because when you take a thing and you make it illegal, whatever that thing is, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's prostitution, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's guns, whatever. You take that thing and make it illegal, you drive it into the underground, you drive it to the black market.
Yeah, then you have to worry about narcs and undercovers and cops, and prostitution would probably still be dangerous, but it's much more dangerous, like everything else, because it's criminal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, it's still going to have the risks of sexually transmitted diseases, right, if it were legal. And you can look to the places where it is legal to see how much less dangerous the actual act is.
You're probably going to have a disproportionate amount of shady people, both as clients and as workers.
Sure, but if you are not slinking through the shadows, if your business is open to the public, if it's known where its location is, you can advertise the fact that you exist. You can advertise your security features. So, for instance, you can have a bouncer on premises. So if some guy starts, a John or a customer in a legal market starts to cause an issue with a girl, all she's got to do is yell for, the bouncer who's in the hallway. And then that problem gets solved. So you don't have the same situation in a legal marketplace with prostitution that you do in the illegal market.
Yeah, but you're describing a higher end place. It's like saying I'm safe in every hotel because the Marriott has XYZ. Like, well, there's still probably some unsafe hotels, even though hotels are legal.
I agree with you. There are going to be girls who work alone.
There are shadier and safer bars, even though alcohol is illegal. So there's still, I don't want to paint the picture that then everything's going to be, butterflies and roses, because it's not.
I agree with you.
But it's the criminalization that makes it that much worse.
No, absolutely. And the girls in the legal market can have and employ whatever kind of protection measures they are willing to employ. Certainly, if you can afford to have a bouncer, then why not have a bouncer? If you're going to be an individual who's going to do, I don't know, is it in call where the girl goes to the client, or is that out call? I don't remember. But there's the kind of prostitutes who go to the client's house, and then there's the kind of client who goes to a location like a whorehouse or something like that where the prostitute exists. So there's two different ways to do that. And most of the girls who are going to go out and go to a client's place are probably not going to bring a bouncer with them. They may be a lower quality or lower price or something like that. Not that I know. I don't have any actual experience in this particular area, but I am interested in things that are prohibited. Things that are prohibited in prohibition is a very interesting topic. So it's interesting to see how, when prohibition is in place, it does take these situations and makes them extremely dangerous. Because your typical street level prostitute today has no protection whatsoever. They might have a pimp, but he's not going to be there. When she shows up in a hotel room. He's not there to protect
them. He's there to protect the revenue.
Well, I mean,
which is somewhat true, I guess, of all security guards, but not. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have a misunderstanding of that, but it just seems not to that level.
Yeah, well, she's going to show up alone at a hotel room. She has no protection, and so she's completely vulnerable to the John in that particular case. If he turns into a psycho or happens to be a nut job who's violent, there's not much she can do besides hopefully escape from that situation. But in the free market, in a marketplace where prostitution is legal, then you can employ whatever kind of protection you can afford to employ, and you don't have to meet people in sketchy locations unless that's something you want to do. You can be way less sketchy about running that particular business in that case. So here on Free Talk Live, I think we generally want to see the end to the prohibition on prostitution, because we know that it'll make things safer for both the Johns and the prostitutes.
I mean, yeah, because, as the client as well, what are you going to do? Call the cops and be like, my prostitute robbed me?
You can't.
I mean, come on.
Right. So both sides know they can, if they want to take advantage of one side or the other, they know the other side is not likely to go to the police. unless they themselves want to be arrested for something, which is what the police will do. If you come to the cops and tell them you are committing a crime and then another crime was committed against you while you were committing that crime, they're not going to feel sorry for you.
Yeah, or if they know they caught something, are they going to quit working and immediately find another industry? Probably not.
No. So, and of course, STD testing becomes more common in a legal marketplace. You're more likely to have prostitutes offering to show their papers, show that they have been tested regularly or recently. So the more higher end, middle to upper end or whatever, institutions will likely have that kind of testing being done regularly. I think Nevada may have a regulation in regards to that. So even if there isn't a regulation in place, it's likely the marketplace will show a certificate of cleanliness or something like that for the prostitute in question. But instead, what you end up with are people slinking around through back rooms and going to these massage parlors, which aren't in fact massage parlors. They're erotic massage with what they call happy ending, and you've got billionaires going in there. We didn't get to this story last night, but I had it last night, and Richie Rich was here, and he pointed out, this is ridiculous that these billionaires, what are they doing? They can afford the higher end prostitutes. So why are they going to, some Jack Shack on the side of the road in Florida when they could probably have an in-call girl or whatever, somebody who shows up at their mansion, or maybe their wife is at the mansion and that's why they have to go to the Jack Shack.
Hotels exist.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
the toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. You can take control of the airwaves. You can bring up what you want. We're talking about prostitution, but you can bring up anything that's on your mind here on Free Talk Live. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free if you want to join us here, talking about the legalization of prostitution, which is something that really is long overdue. If anybody actually cares about their fellow human beings, you don't end prostitution by cracking down and criminalizing it. That has not worked. It's not working now.
It's actually counterintuitive. Or
why do you say that?
Counterproductive, sorry. Counterproductive, not counterintuitive.
Why do you say that?
So if I'm trying to make an argument to somebody as to why they ought not do a thing, whether it's a moral argument or a practical argument or anything else, especially if it's a moral argument, and they can come back at me with, well, yeah, the cop's worse for beating me up and locking me in a cage. Well, yeah, they are. So until that stops happening, it's really difficult to have that conversation at all whatsoever, because now they're the victim instead of being somebody that you can argue with if you want to do that.
Well, are you saying that someone shouldn't do prostitution?
I mean, it's just a bad plan, but
why?
Well, it's incredibly harmful. You can get diseases that will kill you. You can,
True.
Have all these babies that you're.
So hold on then. In that case, you're against people having sex generally more often than a few times with a few people, right? Because whether you're getting paid to have the sex or not is another question. You're just saying that having sex is a risky proposition.
Promiscuity, whether you're getting paid or not, is typically harmful.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree with you that having multiple sex partners...
The police state is more harmful.
Right. But I would agree with you that the more sex partners you have, the higher risk that you are of something, you contracting something that you didn't want, even if you take the precautionary measures that could reduce those likeliness, the factors of that happening. Then, again, if you just have sex thousands and thousands of times with hundreds of different people, then the odds are that one of those measures is going to fail.
Having regular sex, I don't know what I can say on the radio. I think that's the only thing I can say on the radio.
Yeah, usually generally better to be vague. If
with someone who you don't want to have a kid with is typically a bad plan. I mean, because that's what can happen.
But there's nothing. You're not saying there's something inherently wrong with charging for it. You're just saying there's risk involved.
Well, charging for it would tend to imply that you care nothing about this person and would like them to go away as soon as you're done.
Yes.
There's people who've even said, I don't pay for it, I pay them to go away.
That's right.
So that would imply other things to me, but promiscuity in general is just a bad plan.
The toll-free number here tonight is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. Let's go to Gene, the Christian anarchist, although he's now reporting that we've got technical difficulties. I don't know. Can you hear us, Gene? Oh, maybe he can't hear us. All right, so I don't know what's going on with that. We'll see if we can get back to him here in moments on our Discord on-air call-in line rooms. Let's try Bad Slave. We'll see if he's there. Bad Slave, are you there?
I am.
All right, we got you. Go ahead.
Great. So we're still talking about the prostitution, and I'm sorry, I just can't get excited about people that are contracting. I think in a republic, I know you guys like to denigrate the idea of a republic, but a republic.
No, I denigrate the idea of a coercive government.
Right, exactly. Well, a republic is less coercive than a pure majoritarian democracy.
I'm not sure if I agree.
Well, a Republican is expected to protect rights. One of the rights that we all have is a right to contract.
Yes,
and,
you should.
A prostitute and a client should be able to do business and be unharassed.
Same thing's true of a drug dealer and their clients as well, right?
Well, exactly. Even the use of the public way is technically a right for people, in their private capacity.
Well, now that's not the same thing. I mean, you're not talking about the same concept there. If you're talking about the right to contract, and then you cite prostitution and drug dealing, that's one thing. But when you're dealing with a public way, now you're talking about the concept of a government, and there's no real contract there, is there? I mean, signing up for their driver's license is usually done on a coercive basis.
No, but that's still an understood right. The public way exists, supposedly independent of government for the most part. It's
well, the word public means government.
Well, no, it doesn't. Something can be public without being. I mean, Walmart is public.
Walmart's open to the public, but when the government uses the term public, when the politicians use the term public, it's a substitute word for the word government. Look at it every time.
Public doesn't. The Canes Park in Baton Rouge is public. It's not owned by the government.
They would love it to be that, Ian, but the fact is that no, public means it belongs to the public and not government. Government, Oh
yeah, if it belongs to you, then go set up a tent on a public park and see how long you last.
Well, the machinations of governments have never been bounded by reason.
Mm-hmm.
Have they?
Yeah. Well, public is one of those words, like we were talking about earlier. There's certain words like country and nation and the United States. These terms kind of get used and bandied about in different ways that are designed to obfuscate their actual meaning and confuse people that they actually mean the same thing. And the word public is the same way. Public evokes thoughts of, it's owned by all of us. The public is everyone. When the reality is, every time you look at what a government politician is saying, when they say the word public, they are almost always referring to the government. Just try it. The next time you see them using the word public, they are not talking about you and I. They're talking about them.
Ian, are we not talking about, the common liar of the politician? I mean, we're going to honor their words. I'm sorry. I think that's foolish. I'm
not honoring their words. I'm just telling you what they mean.
Yeah, the fact that that's what government officials mean when they say something does not mean that that's... I mean, they talk about all kinds of things that are silly and fictional.
Right. The legal system is full of words that mean something different. It's not honoring the legal system to understand what those words mean, to have a concept of what the legal definitions of those words are and how they're used inside the legal system. That has nothing to do with me giving them respect. I don't respect people who use organized, institutional coercion, but I'm just explaining to you how it is that term is used. So, Bad Sleep, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate the discussion here. The toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And, there was another example of this that happened recently. I forget if it was Ocasio-Cortez or something like that. One of these politicians used the term public, and they're talking about the government. I remember what it was. It was Amazon. The comment was how the public made all these concessions to Amazon to get them into New York, to have their headquarters located in New York. And then Amazon decided they didn't want to do that. And they were bitching because the public made these concessions. No, the government did. They mean the government. There's more coming up. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. Free Talk Live. Open phones, as always. You don't have to call in about prostitution, but you're welcome to. That's the topic on the table at the moment, though. On the way, we can discuss, apparently, the Cubans, if we get the chance, although I don't know if we will. 855-450-FREE. They just apparently ratified a new constitution there. And we can tell you a little bit about that. It's Ian and Melanie in the studio here tonight. Our number is 855-450-FREE. And I want to say thanks to Curry Taylor, who's a Free Talk Live Silver Amplifier. Curry gives $5 a month to the AMP program over at amp.freetalklive.com. And it is a way for you to directly connect with us, connect your support to us, and help us get on more radio stations around the country. So we mentioned that we're now on KABQ in Albuquerque live every day during the week. And it's thanks to listeners like you becoming Free Talk Live amplifiers to help us advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live. That's what AMP stands for. It's amp.freetalklive.com. You can do credit card, PayPal, Bitcoin, BTC to sign up there and get the cool perks and benefits that you get as an amplifier over at amp.freetalklive.com, and it helps us out a lot. That's ampamp.freetalklive.com. As we continue, Gene the Christian Anarchist is with us, and his connection should be working now. Go ahead, Gene.
Crikey, mate, I'm in Australia.
Do they say crikey? I thought that was more of a UK thing.
Crikey. No, that's an Australian,
that's an Australian thing. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, good day.
Anyway,
good day down under. What time is it down there?
Good day, mate. It's about, 1:34 in the afternoon.
All right. What part of Australia are you visiting?
We're in Sydney right now. In a few hours, we're going to go to the opera. I've never been to an opera in my life.
Is that in that iconic building that they always show you when they show you a picture of Sydney?
Yeah. I figured, well, we've been to the Opera House tour. Now we're going to go to an opera.
Okay.
So I'll probably sleep through the whole thing, and I'll be the only one there with an Ole Miss hat on. But, what the heck.
How is the security, the customs getting into Australia? I've heard they're particularly strict.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about is Goonerman goon squads around the world. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, we've spent one day in New Zealand, and then we've been here almost 3 days in Sydney, and then we're going back to New Zealand. And so far, between both of those countries, which are kind of one and the same to me, they seem to be, I haven't seen a single police car, and really? I'm driving. I've rented a car in both places, and driving on the wrong side of the road, which is kind of weird. But I've yet to see a single police car anywhere.
Huh.
And when going through customs, and not just this country, I've gone through about 25 countries now. I never went to any country until about 10 years ago. No, about 20 years ago when I first started going to China. And now I've been to about maybe 25 countries. And I never have any problem with goon squads anywhere in the world except for the USA.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know what the worst experience you can have going through customs anywhere, just go through the U.S. customs.
Right, come back into the USA. Yeah.
Yes, correct. And
hey, I just had my worst one last week. I was detained for 3 hours by Customs and Border so-called protection in JFK Airport and searched again.
And I called you last week about the same thing because I'd been detained in either L.A. or San Francisco. I forget which one. Or maybe it was Seattle. But I never have any issues with any of the other countries. It's only our guys. These guys will smile and treat you nice, treat you with respect. But the U.S. Goon Squad wants to sound all rough and tough. And, they got that gun on their hip that makes them feel like a big, rough, tough guy.
Sure.
I don't see none of these other guys have guns. I've never seen one with a gun. Yeah, not in border protection. They don't. They're just there to check paperwork. They're paper pushers. That's all they are.
Yeah, all of them had guns when I was there at JFK. Every single one of them.
Oh, in the U.S.
Yeah.
I'm talking about other countries.
Right. So even in the western biggies like Australia, you're not noticing the same attitude.
No, and like I say, I haven't even seen a police car yet.
Wow.
I'm still looking.
And it's been a couple days now? You've been down there a couple days and you haven't even seen a single cop car?
Right, and I did take an Uber in New Zealand to the car rental place, and I talked to that guy about, how often do you get pulled over, what's it like, and all this, and he says, well, they will pull you over, but there's not very many of them out there. Mainly it's done through cameras, just like China.
Mm-hmm.
So it just... everywhere I've been, they've been more human than I think the American ones. The American ones are like machines, basically.
Like automatons.
They've got one
mindless
automatons,
robots going through the motions.
Mm-hmm. And there was one point last night where I drove into some place I shouldn't be, and it was a park area, and a park ranger pulled me over, and he said, "You can't be here." And, he was kind of upset because I drove somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. But he still, after I explained, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I didn't see any signs. And he just led me out of the park and said, don't do it again.
Well,
I didn't know. It looked like I could drive in there, so I drove in there.
Anything else you want to share tonight about your experience thus far traveling?
No, it's just if anybody's thinking of traveling overseas, and they're kind of concerned about it. I've been to China. I've been to a lot of different countries. I'd just say go for it. Just enjoy the experience of finding out how other people live. And everywhere I've been, it's pretty much the same in that everybody just wants to get by. Everybody's just working to get by. Doesn't matter if they're Muslim or Jewish or Christian or whatever.
Sure, everybody's got, their family, their responsibilities, the thing that they do, the things that they love, the places that everybody's the same, just all around the world.
Trying to take care of their wife and their kids or their husband and kids, whichever the case may be.
Gene, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate the perspective. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. 855-450-3733. Melanie, have you done much international traveling, having to deal with Customs and Border Protection at all coming back in?
No.
Did you ever go to Canada or anything like that? Or
I went to Canada once when I was like 3.
So you don't remember really then? Count. Okay, yeah. So you've yet to go through the experience of coming back.
Yeah, I really just have no reason to. I'm borderline opposed to traveling for the sake of traveling.
Yeah, I'm not a traveling person. I only do it when I have to, basically for the show.
My thing is if I liked the air better, I'd live there. So,
Right. Well, some people are obsessed with travel, and I don't begrudge them that. It sounds like an expensive hobby. But I always wonder about those folks. Are they just people who are not happy where they are and they're constantly looking?
Well, and sometimes you have a reason to go somewhere. If you have family somewhere or work somewhere, if you're visiting friends or there's if you're.
But you just mean travel for the sake of travel. You mean travel for the sake.
Yeah, traveling for the sake of it is what can I do there I can't do here?
Well, there's certain things that you can see there, right? Usually travel is in a lot of cases about seeing the sights. For people or meeting the people. It
sounds incredibly boring, and I can do it from Google Earth.
Yeah, right. There's photographs, right? The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, although I imagine a travel addict or travel advocate would say it's not quite the same. Looking at a high-resolution photo isn't the same.
Okay, so say it's better to the extent staring at something can be, quote, better.
Yeah.
Is it $10,000 better? Because that's what you have to justify.
Pay. Yeah. At the very least, it's probably a couple grand, right? Yeah. Like if you're going to go somewhere outside of the immediate vicinity where you are, you can probably expect to pay several hundred bucks for plane tickets. Plus, if you're not, crashing at a friend's house, you're going to end up paying a couple $100 a night for a hotel room. So you're likely, and if there's two of you, you're way past $2,000, if not $3,000-$4,000 for.
Yeah, and that's for just basic.
Going to California or Mexico or something.
Yeah,
like
not
that,
adding anything on and doing anything while you're there.
Right.
Just kind of being.
Just going there and eating somewhere here and there, staying at a hotel. All right, so you can bring up whatever you want, whether you want to talk travel or you want to discuss prostitution, legalization of it, and how the black market has made it even more dangerous, and that if you want to help people, if you really do want to fight human trafficking, then the best way that you can possibly do that is by legalizing prostitution. I mean, there's just no better way to do it. No amount of cracking down is going to help. In fact, a lot of the crackdowns have made human trafficking more dangerous. Like the crackdown on advertising prostitution ads on sites like Craigslist, for instance, has made it even harder to find those who are being promoted, who might be being promoted against their will for prostitution. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Dial in, toll free, and bring up whatever's on your mind here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. We got enough time for you if you join us now here on the radio. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Melanie.
Don't forget, you can also check our website out at freetalklive.com. We have video clips now. Just go to clips.freetalklive.com. That'll take you right to the Liberty Bitch channel on YouTube, and you can subscribe there to receive, I think, a few video clips every single day. Eric Freerock is back out of retirement, and he has been cranking away on putting some video clips out of Free Talk Live, which is great because it makes it easier for people to share what we do. Because we do a radio show. It's a 3-hour radio show. You boil it down, take out the commercials, take out the news breaks. It turns into 2 hours of just, wall-to-wall content. And that's still a lot of content. It's hard to share a 2-hour-long show with somebody and say, hey, listen to this, because the average person is going to be like, I don't have time for that. So if you just share a clip from the show that you will find over on our Clips channel at clips.freetalklive.com, it makes it a lot easier. And if you are following us on social media, including Twitter, Mastodon, and Telegram, then you will be given alerts when those clips come out. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, go to twitter.freetalklive.com. If you want to use Mastodon, which is, in my opinion, better than Twitter because it's decentralized, go to toot.freetalklive.com, toot.freetalklive.com. And to follow us on Telegram, on our Telegram channel, it's telegram.freetalklive.com. That'll get you to all those places, and all of them have the Free Talk Live video clips posted when they go live on YouTube. So once again, follow us there and share those clips. We sure do appreciate it. Great way to get the ideas of liberty out there into your social media and into your friends' eyes and ears and your family members and followers and all that. So thank you for doing that. All right, let's continue here as we go back to the phones, to the fun. We've got Andre listening, I believe, to WTTB out there in Vero Beach, Florida. Hello, Andre.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, welcome. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks, Ian. I was going to shed some light about the DUI, just from past experience, not something that I'm proud of, but
sure.
When I was 19, I had reckless driving, which they considered like a DUI. They just couldn't prove anything.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, about 25 years later, I got a DUI. Mm-hmm. And then 10 years went by. Now, to my understanding, if you get two within a 10-year period, you do go to jail, and you do serve time up to a year.
That sounds familiar. If that's Florida, yeah, it sounds probably right.
Yeah, and then the thing is, if you get your second one after 10 years, there is no jail time, but the consequences are pretty substantial. Mm-hmm. In my case, for instance, I'm in the tile marble business, so I drove about 30 miles to drop off a jackhammer. I did have a beer, and I got pulled over. Damn. And quite honestly, they asked me about doing the sobriety test. And I did. Two sheriffs pulled up, and I did the field test, and I passed. The one cop looked at me. He says, "Oh, you seem fine. Your eyes are red." And I was like, "It's all dust." I'm not a doper, and I haven't been drinking, except I did have one beer. Oh, the other guy says, oh, you're from Vero Beach. You must be some rich guy because I live in a wealthy town.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not wealthy. And he asked me, would you blow? And I said, I was told, because I have a lawyer friend, and he told me never blow. Boy, I'll tell you, that was the biggest mistake I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
But in front of the judge, the guy looked at me. He says, I'm tired of you construction guys saying you had one beer when you probably had 10. The prosecutor started laughing, and I looked at the judge, and I probably should have held my tongue. And I said, that's nice. You sit there high and mighty, and you're going to tell me that I've had 10 beers when I was honest. I passed the field sobriety test, and yet, boy, and he hammered me. He gave me 2 years suspension, 2 years interlock, 2 years jail time, and I've never been in jail, never been in trouble in my life.
So hold on, I'm confused. I'm missing something from this story here. If the cops claim you passed the field sobriety test, then you refused to blow, what did they arrest you for?
DWI.
Yeah, DUI, because I refused to blow. The first cop left. The second one looked at me and he says, so you're from Vero Beach? And I said, yes, sir. And you always have to be very polite. So he looked at me and he says, well, if you don't blow, I can take you to jail. And I said, I was told not to blow. And he goes, who told you that? And I said, I have a lawyer, very high-end lawyer, that told me never blow. He says, I can take you to jail. And I said, well, I wish you wouldn't. And he right there and then he jumped out of the car. He says, I'm taking you to jail.
Damn. Now,
so
that's funny because we've heard different advice. Now, again, it all depends on which attorney and what their opinions are.
Well, it depends largely also on what state you're in.
What state, yeah. Now, are you allowed to refuse the field sobriety in Florida? Because a lot of people would say that's something you want to refuse rather than the breathalyzer.
Well, that's what I was told. But quite honestly, you're better off if you were really drinking 1 or 2 beers. You should blow. It's not going to register much. Mm-hmm. If it does, and say you drank a beer and within 20 minutes the guy comes, by the time they test you and everything else, you're not going to blow but maybe a 0.02.
That assumes that the machine is properly calibrated, which they almost never are.
Mm-hmm.
So people have been dead sober and blew,
really?
0.2.
Well, see, this is the catch. I went out and bought myself the blow machine. It cost me about $400. I sit at home, I drink a beer, I blow.
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes after I drank a beer, I blow. I'm blowing a 0.06, which is, in Florida, it's 0.08 to be legally intoxicated.
Right, but you're not tampering with your own machine. And you're not using it 50 times a night, I assume.
She's saying the machine the cops are using are notoriously inaccurate and can be manipulated.
Not necessarily. They're pretty much on key, enough to get you to the station to get you onto the real one. But by the time you do that, you're probably looking at about 45, maybe an hour later. And your level's gonna come down.
Can you refuse the roadside breathalyzer and demand the breathalyzer at the station?
That's the best thing to do, because then say you've had 4 beers, which would make a person about 180 pounds, which I'm 185. It would reduce it to the point that they really won't be able to charge you, because you're lucky if you go, you'll probably end up blowing a 0.02, a 0.03.
Andre, thanks for calling and sharing your story with us tonight. I definitely appreciate it. Hopefully some people can learn from it. Although, again, as you pointed out, Melanie, you probably need to check the local state regulations.
I've seen people in cases, they'd blow well over the limit. They'd have a clean urine test and a clean blood test. If the other 2 tests are clean, you're clean.
Yeah, something's wrong with that machine, the breathalyzer.
And these people still got convicted. And it's like, okay, well, I'm more worried about the people who are sober and are blowing high numbers, because, if I have a guy who I know is dead sober and he's blowing a 0.2 or a 0.15 or even a 0.08, that's the real problem to me. I'm kind of less worried about somebody who, had 10 beers or had 5 beers and then got in a car and they blow a 0.08 or a 0.07 or whatever. So the problem is that the test is just wildly unreliable.
Yeah, and there have been suits against some of these breathalyzer companies and tests, from what I understand. I don't know if any of them have succeeded against them, but I know that there's been some action that some attorneys have tried to take in these cases.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're still here. My concern, though, about the two tests is, so say you take the road test, and it's, say you're sober, and you take the road breathalyzer test, and it comes back at a 0.09.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, bring me to the station and give me the real one. And so the cop takes his sweet time, bringing you to the station, and then 4 hours later, he gives you the real one, and all he has to do is get up in front of the judge and be like, oh, well, he was drunk when I arrested him driving.
Yeah, of course he's
but then
going to
4
blow
hours
lower.
later, of course he's sober now. So
don't take the first one, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I can't make advice for all states.
Right.
But that would be my concern. The best thing to do is look up the rules in the jurisdiction that you live in.
Let's go to Ray in Long Island, listening online. Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
You guys are talking about prostitution.
Yeah.
I'm a man whore.
Okay. How long have you been doing that line of work?
For about 5 or 6 years. It's very lucrative.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you do you go to clients' houses, or do they come to you?
No. Usually I go to the local Marriott hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the lobby bar. And I know when, certain people are coming into the hotel, like a
convention of Republicans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, I want to hear.
Melanie, how you doing?
Hey, Ray, hang on, man, hang on. Hey, she's doing good. Ray, I want to have this conversation with a man whore. But unfortunately, you're right in at the end of the show. So I'm going to ask you to call in earlier tomorrow night so we can actually have this conversation when Derek J. Freeman is going to be with us. He's back, which I'm very excited about. And Johnson will be here, too. So, Ray, call back tomorrow. Call earlier.
Yeah, I want to see that show with Derek J. and Ray.
And Ray the Man Whore. And we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Thanks for the call. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. From Anarchapulco 2019, Ian Freeman here in our remote studio at the beautiful Princess Resort. Amazing location, great group of folks. Estimated as many as perhaps 2,500 attendees this weekend. It's been a tremendous success, and lots of them are interesting to talk to. We've only had a chance to, give you a taste of what things have been like here. But we're still meeting new folks, and that means we got plenty of content here for some of our after shows on the Free Talk Live podcast. That's where you're hearing these. Next up, we got Dr. Mike Thomann.
Correct.
All right, from DIY.com. You were telling me, Mike, that you had encountered the tyranny of the police state in a kind of a shocking way. Can you kind of tell me your story?
Yes, it was an eye-opener situation for me. Probably about 7 years ago, I was on my houseboat with a lot of friends and family, just celebrating.
And where was this?
Lake Norman, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
We were just out celebrating, having a wonderful day, and it was young people, old people on the boat, kids, children. We were just out there having, like I said, a birthday celebration, and yes, some people were drinking.
Yep.
Okay, me included. I think that day I did have probably 2 beers, to be honest with you, which, normally I drink a little bit more when I'm on the boat.
Yep.
But I was so busy kind of hosting the party and a lot of people, just, hosting everything. So anyhow, at the end of the day, we come in, and like I said, this is a 44-foot houseboat. We come puttering back into the marina. And that day I did get some bad gas, and I was having problems with my engine, and I stalled out once or twice trying to come in, and we kind of bumped the dock a little bit. But no big deal. We landed it. It was all good. Everybody's happy. Next thing you know, a couple police officers pull up on the back end of my boat, and all of a sudden, instead of saying, hey, you guys okay? Is everything all right? Concerned for our well-being? No. Mm-hmm. It was like, who's the captain? And who's driving this boat? I'm like, that was me. And then first question's out of their mouth.
Mistake number one.
Yeah, and admitting something.
Yep.
But I'm an honest, law-abiding citizen. That's what I figured.
That's what you thought.
Tell the truth, right? I didn't know any better at the time.
Yeah.
And then, next question they ask, which is the biggest mistake that I learned, and I put it in my mobile app. Have you been drinking today?
Mm-hmm.
And once again, as an honest, law-abiding citizen, I told the truth.
Mistake number 2.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not saying you should lie. Just wanted for our listeners, who are just tuning in, no, you can't just tune into a podcast, but for listeners who might be new to the show, we've been talking about a lot of this stuff for a long time. I'm one of the original members of CopBlock, copblock.org.
Oh, wonderful.
It's kind of a website that doesn't really exist anymore. It's still there, but it's not what it used to be.
Right.
It's a know your rights organization, so you and I are probably going to get along on a lot of stuff here. But whenever a cop contacts you, because cops can walk up to you on the street just like anybody can walk up to you on the street. And this isn't legal advice. This is just my understanding. But whenever a cop contacts you and asks you a question, you're under no obligation whatsoever to give them any answers. So don't lie. Just don't talk to them is really the best thing to do. So had you not admitted to being the captain, had you not admitted to drinking, they probably wouldn't have been able to really do much of anything at that point. But a lot of people, like you're saying, they grew up thinking Officer Friendly's there to help.
Yeah.
They're just, I'm a law-abiding person. I can't get in trouble if I tell the truth or whatever.
Right.
Well, turns out they're out to get you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not about your safety, protecting you.
Right.
It's all about...
It's about caging you. It's about bringing you up on criminal charges,
yeah,
and bringing new revenue into the system.
Exactly.
Is what it is.
It's about the money. It's not about your safety. And I clearly,
no one was in danger. You'd parked the boat. You were fine.
Exactly. Once again, it's about a pre-crime. They're trying to arrest me for a pre-crime. Well, you could have hurt somebody. Well, I didn't. Okay, and yet next thing you know, I find I'm out there in the middle of the lake on a police officer's boat, away from all my friends, away from being videoed. Okay, because they pulled me out to the marina where they could separate me from my friends and family, and then they basically were, tricking me into doing all these sobriety tests and do this and do that and do that. And I'm like, wait, whoa, why? And
so you were on dry land. You'd parked your boat. Cops come up, ask who was in charge. You volunteered that information to them, admitted you were drinking. Take me between where you admitted you were drinking and how you ended up on a boat with them. I missed that part.
All right, I was on a 44-foot houseboat.
Right.
Okay, so I went they pulled up to the back of my boat once I pulled in.
The boat.
I was still on the boat.
Still on the boat. Okay.
So when I pulled up, they pulled up to the back of my boat asking me these questions, and I said it was me. Yes, I had a couple beers. Next thing you know, get on my boat. So now I'm on his boat, and then he pulls me away from the situation. Now he's got me isolated, okay? And now that's what he wants. He's got me isolated,
so they actually
confused.
puttered out into the water.
Yes, they puttered out away from everybody else.
That's creepy.
And then when I asked him questions like, why do I have to do this, or why this, or why that, I can't answer any of your questions.
Oh, I see.
So that's where my app comes in. It's like it tells you what to do in that situation, because if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights.
That's
if
right.
you don't know what to do, they're going to push you into a corner. They're going to trick you, lie to you. And once again, as soon as you say something like, yeah, I had one drink with my grandmother, you're guilty. Okay, now you just admitted guilt, and now they got probable cause. And just one thing led to another. I didn't know what to do. He didn't give me any advice. And then he wanted me to, I did some of his sobriety tests. He didn't say if I passed or failed. Next thing you know, we go out the breathalyzer, blow into there. And I didn't know any better, so my first response is no. Okay? Everyone always says don't blow. Of course, you hear this from your uncle's buddy's best friend.
Right.
But no real good legal advice.
Nope.
Which is why I put it on a website, which is why I put it on an app, so people know that this isn't just from your buddy's uncle's friend. This is legit information, hopefully, for people to have when they need it. And so I kind of instinctively said no, which I knew, though, in my brain, I only drank 2 beers that day, okay? But I still panicked, okay, just because that's my first reaction to say no.
Right.
And next thing you know, he's like, okay, I guess we're going in. He gave me 60 seconds, and I'm like, can I call my lawyer? No. So he just said that, no. And, of course, I don't have him on tape because I'm out in the middle of the lake.
Right.
And then next thing you know, we're going in. So I'm like, okay, great, we're going in. So he pulls into the gas dock down there.
Yep.
And then I'm finally, all my friends and family come down, and they're like, what's going on? What's he being charged of? DWI. Well, first of all, I can't be charged with DWI because you don't have any proof for that, okay? All I did was I refused to blow in the breath analyzer, so all I can be accused of is implied consent or not doing what you say. But you cannot charge me with DWI. So I don't have handcuffs on at this point. He's got back into the gas dock, and now I'm saying, fine, just let me blow, okay? If, this is all I need to do, let me blow. And I've got this on tape, and it's on my website. All this now is being recorded. And they're saying...
because your family was recording?
My family's being recorded.
Yep.
And it says...
Good for them.
You can see where the officer escalates it and escalates it and escalates it. And we're just like, just let me blow. And he's like, it's too late. So it is like, oh, what do you mean it's too late? And it's like, you're under arrest. And it's like, no words ever came out of his mouth that says, I'm under arrest. I had no handcuffs on, so clearly I wasn't under arrest.
Right.
But it was now he's arrogantness. It's too late. And they were like, wait a minute. We could just resolve this whole thing right here. Okay, I got this on tape. So I got my brother saying, we could resolve this whole thing on tape right here if you would just let him blow. I'm not going to let him do it. So right there just goes to show you his arrogance. And next thing you know, we've got 10 cop cars coming down.
Wow.
They tackled my girlfriend on the dock because she was asking questions.
Yep.
And then next thing you know, it's like they're arresting 10 people.
God.
Okay, I'm going to jail. They want to do blood on me. They want to do this. So 10 people went to jail. A couple of people were injured. Cops threw, like I said, my girlfriend down on the dock. They escalated all this over a simple non-incident.
Wow.
And then that started my journey like, oh, my God, so I'm innocent, and yet now I'm going to jail.
Yep.
I'm being booked. And then try to find some answers out there in the real world. Every lawyer wants $5,000 retainer before they'd give me any answers.
Right.
And I would tell them this story like, I only had 2 beers, I swear to God. They, of course, believe you or don't, or I don't know, but they're like, you'd think they would just say, man, no problem, I just get you off and just, I'll deal with it. You're innocent. It shouldn't be a problem. But no, nothing's ever that simple in the legal system.
Yep.
It's not a justice system. It's a legal system, clearly. So through a lot of hard work and research, I figured it out myself. I went pro se. And, geez, imagine that. Just amazingly, the state happened to lose my blood results. Okay.
How coincidental.
Coincidental, because, when it would have showed up probably 0.0 in their face, they would look pretty stupid.
Right.
Okay. And then, I try to take out criminal charges against the officer for, malicious, So
wait, hold on. Before you get to a criminal charge, what happened with the case? Because they lost the results, was it dismissed or?
Yeah, after me having to go up to court 2 or 3 times and play the game and do the process, and then they lose the blood results, so it gets continued.
Yep.
Then I got to go back, take another day off of work, go up there, and then, the DA's
they
not
get paid
here.
to be there. You
don't.
don't.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't care about your time.
Right.
So I think the 3rd time I go up there, they still don't have the blood results, and I tell the guy, look, I'm a doctor. I got my own practice. This is ridiculous. They lost the blood results. Yeah, that's on them. And the judge was actually, I don't know if he was in on it and he knew that, that was going to come back negative or what, but he did throw out the case. So that was it.
Wow. What about the other family members? What were they charged with? You said they arrested 10 of them.
Oh, your BS charges like,
disorderly conduct.
Disorderly conduct. Yeah.
Resisting arrest.
Yeah, resisting arrest. Yeah, the
These
classics.
are their favorites.
Yeah. Just like Peter Sage over there for contempt of court. It's like, really? Anything to harass you.
So this set you on a new journey in life, huh?
It opened my eyes to, like I said, the police are not there to protect and serve. Right. It's more of like your Transformers.
This shit happens every single day to people all across the United States. It's so common.
And it's sad that you never hear about this in the media, okay? And that's why I had to draw a line in the sand and say that I don't want this to happen to somebody else, okay? Someone's got to stand up and do something. And,
right on.
It was a lot of work. It's a lot of time on my part. I haven't made, any. I'm not making any money on this at this point. I would like to, at some point, make a little revenue stream on it so I could keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay? But my main goal is I don't want this to happen to somebody else, so I did spend the time and the money and developed a mobile app for Android and iOS is coming out here in the next couple of months. And then
what does it do? What's the point of the app?
The point of the app is, most people are not going to study the law before they get pulled over. Okay, we're too busy. We're on the hamster wheel, trying to pay our taxes, keep up with life. So when you do get pulled over, there's a section in my app that actually is an algorithm, and it pulls it up and you say, I'm being pulled over. You hit this button, and it walks you through the exact steps what to do. And it even has some legal disclaimers on there. Mm-hmm. Say this to the officer. Roll down your window. Say this to the officer. I plead the fifth. Here's my license registration. I'm not going to answer any questions.
Good.
I respect you as a police officer.
Yep.
But
that's a good script. That sounds like good information. Again, being involved in for a lot of years in know your rights information and telling people how to handle police interactions. The less you say, the better off you are. There was that pesky Supreme Court decision that did say you have to verbalize your right to remain silent, which is crazy, but that's why you've put in there. I'm using my Fifth Amendment right. I'm going to remain silent. Thank you very much. There's another guy who I love on YouTube. His name's Kenny Suter, I think is his name, and he does videos where he has interactions with the police, and all he says whenever the cops try to ask him something, he says, "I don't answer questions." Just that's all he says. So that is that sort of I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. Just any time, because they'll always come back with another question. Well, blah, 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 blah. I don't answer questions. He just keeps on coming back with that. And then finally the cops are always like, get out of here.
Right. They got nothing. Okay, like I said, if you plead the Fifth, they don't have anything to get you on. If you say, you're a a-hole or you're something like, or get on my face, or you're a slang cop term, then they're going to get you for something, okay? And they'll make something up. But if you just stay calm, say, I don't answer questions, simple things like that, can get you out of a lot of trouble.
Now, question for you on, the research that you've done. As I understand it, in different states, there are different provisions around refusals of, say, the breathalyzer or refusing to do the roadside tests. Does it take into factor like where the person is as far as in your app? Does it matter where they're, Florida or in New Hampshire or whatever?
We will have different states broken down as far as the penalties and the levels of DWI and stuff like that. But generally, the rules are kind of across the board.
Are they pretty standard?
It's like, if they got to ask you your permission to do anything, don't do it.
Yeah.
Can you get out of the car? Can we search your car? No. Can you do a roadside sobriety test? No. Can you, blow into here? No. Just,
So in some states, as I understand it, if you refuse if you can refuse the sobriety test, but you can't refuse the breathalyzer, or they take your license for a certain period of months.
Correct. That's called implied consent. Okay, so they get you on that. But if you were drinking, okay, and you're not sure if you're over the limit or you're close, basically I'd rather have my license taken away for 6 months
than get a conviction.
DWI. Okay, so once again, if you know what strategy to use, okay, you can get yourself out of a situation even if you're drunk. Okay?
Right.
Just don't admit to any guilt. Don't do any road sobriety. Don't give them any evidence. Bottom line.
Right. That's because that's what you're doing. Whenever you do their sobriety test, you're helping their case.
Yeah, exactly.
You are making their case for them. And the roadside, if you're going to do one of them, do the breathalyzer, because if you did just have a beer, you probably are going to be fine on the breathalyzer. But if you're too tired or whatever and you fuck up the roadside test, there's no real, you're not talking to a machine here. You're talking to a human being, and they get to determine based on their observation whether or not they think you've passed the test. And if they don't like you, then they can still say that you didn't pass the test, even if you think you did a great fucking job, putting your feet in front of the other and walking the line or whatever. Even if you said your ABCs correctly or whatever, it's not being recorded most of the time.
Nope.
Of course, one of the things we recommend is record every interaction you have with the police. I don't know if you suggest that in
my
your
app. actually does. As soon as you put the "I'm being pulled over" button, it pulls up the audio and video of your phone.
Nice.
It starts recording all that.
Sounds like you've covered the bases with this, Dr. Mike Thomann.
I've tried here, and we're redoing the website right now, making it all, I think, a little bit more mobile friendly, and we appreciate any feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get a lot of feedback from these lawyers and the legal system, because I'm the enemy. They don't really want to help me.
No, you're a problem. You're helping people avoid the attorneys, which means avoid the ridiculous tests. An ex-girlfriend of mine recently had an issue with a DUI, and she probably should have known better, but she didn't do it right, and she did take the sobriety test. They ended up charging her. They didn't have any evidence because she wasn't drinking at all.
Yeah.
But they thought she was a crackhead. Because it was 3 a.m. In a little gas station in a small town in New Hampshire. She'd left her house in order to make a phone call because her home, she didn't have cell phone service there. So she has to drive into town. She was just there, it's February. It's freezing cold out. She was in her sandals. She just figured she was going to go and make a phone call, come back home.
Yeah.
And, cop makes her get out of the car. She does these tests. She's standing in pools of water, freezing cold water, in, bare feet, basically. and just being tortured by this awful cop, these corrupt cops, and they charged her with DUI. Ended up having no evidence of an actual DUI, but they did a blood draw on her and found out she had a prescription for Adderall. And so they claimed she had too much Adderall in her system, and it just became this ridiculous ordeal that never had to happen in the first place. She hires an attorney and, of course, pays him thousands of dollars. It's impoverished her. She doesn't have any money anymore.
Yeah. That can ruin a young person's life.
Yeah, it can ruin anybody's life.
Yeah, financially. And then what if she had to drive for a living and you're getting charged with a DUI?
Right.
Okay, now you lose your job.
Yeah, you live out in the middle of the woods, you have to drive to go to work. You can't just walk to work. You've got to drive.
I have a infomercial linked up to my Facebook page, and there's a commercial that they brag on TV. They brag that you're going to live with your mom, you're going to lose all your money, you're going to lose your car. They brag it on there that we're going to destroy your life if you do DWI.
Yeah. And it
I'm
does.
like, oh my God, you know.
And of course, the people who are real drunks, they don't care. They get right back behind the wheel and keep drinking.
Oh yeah.
So we know that the actual criminal charges don't actually really stop the real problems.
Right.
They just end up impoverishing, like you said, young people and older people, and it's so tragic. I'm so glad that you came over to say hi because I've been on board with this for a long time, and I know some of our listeners already know a lot of this, but we always have new listeners tuning in, so it's important to hear your story, and thank you for sharing it today here. That's Dr. Mike Thomann. His website is DIY.com. Now, did you say the app's already available or it's coming out soon?
The Android app is available now.
It's available. Okay, so it's in the Play Store. So if somebody what do they search for if they want to find it?
DWI Secrets.
DWI Secrets.
Yeah,
okay.
Because everything else is going to be on there is be from a law firm, a legal firm. They're not going to tell you the real deal.
Nope.
So this is really the only independent mobile app out there with DWI. So we are renaming the website DWIsecrets.com, make it a little bit easier. I did the DIY, so do it yourself.
DWI, yeah.
But a lot of people aren't comfortable with doing it yourself, so hopefully we can guide you. And we work with some, smart people. Once again, between the app, myself, a couple other people, we can you don't need a lawyer. Do it yourself. Okay,
great.
Save your $5,000, $10,000, and the problem is nobody knows your case better than you.
Right.
Okay, so your lawyer, you're just a number. Okay, so he's not going to work very hard. He's going to throw you under the bus. He's going to get a plea deal. He's going to make you probably get charged with some form of DWI, just a lesser degree, and still going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, have an ignition interlock on your car. And it's like, for what? Because you didn't stop at a stop sign and you had 2 beers? And I've proven, too, with a breath analyzer, that I could gargle with a beer right now at 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock here. I haven't had anything to drink. I could gargle with a beer right now and blow a 2.0.
Sure.
So those breath analyzer machines are terrible,
Bullshit.
too.
Yep.
So we can get those thrown out in court, too.
Dr. Mike Thomann, DIY.com. Thanks for joining me on Free Talk Live.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. This is Anarchapulco 2019. We're probably going to have some more after-show guests here because it's just a great event full of interesting people. And once again, check out Anarchapulco.com for more. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.